Everybody, welcome to today's the May 18th Planning Commission meeting for Nevada City. We're called to order. This Planning Commission meeting convenes on the ancestral territories of the Nevada City, Rancheria, and Nisenan tribe. Do we do roll call before Pledge of Allegiance? I don't see Pledge of Allegiance on the agenda.
It's above roll call.
Would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ermshar.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
here.
Commissioner Van Zant is absent. Vice Chair Cobden.
Here.
Chair and I.
Here. This is the time for comments from the public for items not on the agenda today. So comments are welcome, though action or discussion by the commission may not occur at this time. So do we have anybody in the audience who'd like to comment on anything not on the agenda, or anyone in the Zoomosphere? Do you have a comment?
I have a comment. Gail Dansky, 310 Niles Street. Many of us are saddened by the loss of the massive Felix Gillette sugar maple at 502 Nevada Street. I talked to the crew. They said that it was the city who gave them the A-OK to take it down due to rot. If you look at what's left of the tree now, there's definitely rot in the center, which would have been the heartwood. The heartwood is never a live part of a tree. It's the cambium layer that keeps the trees and the roots alive and gives it the signals to produce leaves and do its wonderful thing. So there was still quite a bit of cambium layer, and that tree could have been just brought down versus completely abolished. So I'm hoping that the city does replant along Nevada Street, which once was the grand entrance into this town before the freeway was built, because of the historical factor and because it is one street where a lot of people come, whether they be tourists or citizens, to appreciate the fall colors. And I wish the city had harvested some of this wood so that they could do something ceremonial with it. The branches are very healthy. There were maybe one or two dead branches, but it didn't have, I'm a horticulturist, so I know plants very well. It did not have a significant amount of top dead growth. It was wired in place. So in talking to Mountain Enterprise, they said the city looked at it as a liability, and they wanted to repair the sidewalk. So I'm speaking for the whole neighborhood. It's not in my neighborhood, but I'm sorry to see that gorgeous tree go. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
If anyone online would like to make a public comment at this time, please raise your virtual hand. Seeing none.
I have on the agenda a parking study presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, there's not going to be a parking study presentation today.
Okay.
I put it on a while ago when I thought it was going to be on here, but I was told after I published that it won't be going, so.
The consent calendar, for clarity, all items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature, and all recommended actions of the staff report will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the commission or public requests otherwise, in which case the item will be removed for separate consideration. Any item so removed will be taken up following the motion to approve the consent agenda. Does anyone want to look at the item in the consent agenda, which is approval of the meeting minutes from April 20th. I'd like to discuss something before approval of the minutes, which is the formula business, public hearing item 9. As I recall it, the approval of the conditional use permit was not done. We had, I believe you have a,
If you look at the motion,
Motion
so you
fails.
guys made a motion that failed,
Okay,
and then you
all
made
right.
another motion.
I should have read more carefully, but we've discussed it and it's cleared, so.
Yeah.
We have a motion to approve the.
Well,
consent
that
calendar.
was going to be my only comment, actually, on the second motion that passed. I did state in the moment, I can't speak for Peter Van Zant, but I feel like we both had the impression that what we were voting on was similar lettering to the existing building, not the branded logo lettering. And so I wasn't given the option to change my vote or anything, but I just wanted that on the record, that
Oh, I
I would have voted no.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make
I
sense?
can, yes, and I do kind of remember that discussion after the vote had been made.
There wasn't a formal rereading
Yeah.
of the motion, and so it was not clear, and I thought I was voting for
Yeah.
something else.
So you just want it in the record that you,
I-
upon
I-
understanding what the motion actually was, you probably would have voted no.
I would have,
Okay,
100%.
would have voted no. Okay.
In the agenda today, there's a continuance of the item with actually a mock-up of the branded lettering in all white on the building, which is not what I was imagining. I was imagining Plaza Tire lettering that just said big brand.
Okay.
So
And
that's
by
what I
lettering, you
thought
mean
we were,
font, right? Font and color.
font and, yeah.
Okay.
We're joined by our city attorney.
Hi, Russ.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you again.
About the delay, I have a new upgraded laptop. So of course, the upgrade wasn't very efficient for me connecting today, so sorry about that.
I'd like to ask, did you hear the discussion we were just having about the Commissioner Ermshar had a different understanding of what she was voting on the item 9 of last month's agenda? We were just discussing the consent agenda. And Amy, can you explain it in a
Yeah.
way that doesn't have so much in it?
So at the last meeting, and unfortunately, we had Scott Porter was here for us for that meeting. There was a motion that was read that everyone voted on, and it passed. But I think two of the commissioners after, and they never re-voted, but both of them said that wasn't quite, after we had discussed it a bit, that wasn't their understanding of the motion. So Commissioner
turn this off.
Ermshar is saying she would have voted no if she had understood the motion. I was just going to reflect that in the minutes, change the minutes to say something to the effect that Commissioner Ermshar, upon understanding better the motion that was made, would have voted no. Does that sound like an okay way to handle it?
That's fine. Doesn't change the result of the action.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
Right.
sounds good.
Thank you. So do we have a motion to approve the consent item?
I'll motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor. Okay, next up, item 2, Historic District sign, 824 Zion Street, River Run Chiropractic.
Okay, and I've got our applicant on line.
So the application says non-historical sign, but this is falling under a historical sign.
Yeah, I will, try to explain that in my staff report.
Okay.
here. Oh, there she is. Amanda, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna just do a quick staff report and then commission may have some questions for you. Oops, I'm in the wrong place. Okay, so this is an application for a sign at 824 Zion Street. Representative Amanda Ashley is requesting approval for the River Run chiropractic business. The sign will have two faces supported by posts at a 90-degree angle, so that it's visible from, both northbound and southbound traffic. It would be located in the lawn area in front of the building and have a height of 4 feet. The applicant is depicting a directional parking sign, which may be permitted, and then it was corrected to me today that it's actually two directional signs on both sides. We do have an exception for directional signs that aren't over 4 square feet, are exceptions from our sign size standards. The applicant has agreed to the reduction, back up. I uploaded a new version of the sign application this morning that Ashley had sent to me, or Amanda had sent to me. So the original one was over the 4 square feet. She had agreed to reduce it, but now the version that's in there right now is actually 4 square feet or even less. The sign material is a furniture grade plywood. The background is white. And the lettering and graphics are green, tan, and blue. I don't have a specific color palette. Sign graphics are mountain/river scene. It's two-sided, but again at an angle. It's the 2x6, so 24 square foot altogether. That's not right. Oh yeah, no, that's right. 2x6, and I said just a sans serif font. So with that, that's all I have. I'll pull up the sign exhibit, and I'll put it on the. To get to your point about the office professionals. So this sign is in the office professional zone. If you go to the office professional zoning designation, one of the site development standards says signs shall adhere to the section dealing with historical district signs. So that's why it's before you.
Would the applicant, would Amanda like to add anything to Ms. Wolfson's presentation?
I'm happy to answer any questions about the design once you see it, and then I'm also more familiar with applying for the historic district, downtown Nevada City. So this is my first time applying for a permit that's not in that district. So I am happy to make any updates to the paperwork that are needed.
Any questions from the commission for staff or for Amanda?
Nope.
Just for clarification, I think there's two options here. A preferred one is the 90 degrees and, two signs at a right angle. And the second one is a single piece of plywood with signs back to back. Did I understand that correctly from is that still in the revised application?
This
the way I see it.
This is all new, and I'm sorry I didn't get much of a chance to review it, but I think it's still the 90 degrees, right? Or is maybe?
Yeah, I put 95. 90 is
95.
fine. It's
Okay.
just, there's flexibility based on what you guys want. It's more, if we go perpendicular to the street, it really cuts on the visibility for both sides of the traffic. So, specifically that area of Zion is super hectic, and people miss the driveway all the time. So we're just trying to address the elderly population that is the customer base for this business, and for the area of the street that's highly busy, just to make it really easy to see it. And there's always parking on both sides of that driveway that really obscure the visibility as well.
So the version of the application that was in the agenda had this alternative, should the planning commission not grant the angular sign plan. Is that still on the table?
Sorry, there's,
I sent Amy the update, and then the file was too large, so she got it this morning, in an openable file. I talked to my client a couple days ago, and they just were really adamant about, wanting to not go with just one perpendicular sign that's two-sided versus the 90-degree angle signage. Due to the visibility issues, we walked it, we looked at what it would be like to do the perpendicular sign. So the secondary option is if you guys are wanting something less modern and more rustic,
nope, I think we lost
would
you. Oh.
include some cast iron hardware and some chain and a wooden frame around the sign. So it's just an alternate design option should you find the first option too modern.
Okay, so the second option that's in the agenda is no longer on the table. This is what we're looking at,
I
that
see.
you have up here.
I don't even remember if I wrote that. I had
That's
it,
our,
oh, okay. Sorry?
that's the preference, yeah.
Which one is the
So-
preference? I'm confused.
To have the angled sign.
Okay, the angled sign that has the border around it as well.
Yeah, either,
Yeah, either of those, yeah.
Okay.
Whichever prefers, yep.
Okay.
Can you scroll up some more, Amy, so you
Scroll
can
up.
see the rest of that?
like, sorry, do you mean scroll that
Proceed
way?
further down,
Okay.
it's there, that's
I
what I
say
want to see.
scrolling, I would say that's scrolling down.
Is there any more below that, or is that?
Oh, the next one is just signs are in the area.
Got it.
I will note, none of these signs are in the office professional zone. I'll also note, I don't know, some of them are really old, but I don't know what the sign application history for them is, but they wouldn't have come to the planning commission because none of these are in the office professional or the historic district.
That answers my
That would have
question.
been my question for staff. So the sushi and the raw sign, which is similar to the one that the preferred one, isn't an applicable comparison because it's in a different.
It's in a different zoning designation and I
It
don't
also
think it's
didn't.
come through.
Right, it wasn't
With staff.
applied for. I had a question about the direction sign, 4 feet. Now, there are two signs, so is that 4 feet combined?
It's not really very clear in the ordinance. It just says, I mean, and I can imagine other, like especially a very large office building or something, maybe needing more than 1 4-square-foot directional sign. So I think it's kind of left up to interpretation. It just says directional signage is accepted from the code requirements as long as it's not more than 4 square feet. So, yeah, I had that, I wondered that too.
And then another question of the applicant, is there discussion, are you planning an application for a sign that's mounted on the building someplace?
No. No, the building is set back fairly far off the street and there's a lot of really large trees in front of the building.
I think there's a picture with something on there, and I can't quite tell, but there, looks
The
like,
logo looks like.
yeah, it looks like there's a picture with.
Oh, I had asked you about murals. That's deferred. That's not
Oh,
part of this.
that's- okay, that's what that is.
That I asked about, and we're waiting for the vibrancy committee to kind of go through all that, so.
There's currently a banner sign on the building and then another banner sign on the arbor
Yeah.
at the entrance.
Those would be removed.
Okay, that's all, that's it for questions for me. Wendy?
Looking at
you have any
me?
questions, yeah?
No, I wouldn't say I have any questions. I think I understand. It's the total combined square footage is 24, whether it is a single sign that's double-sided or a right angle of 2 separate signs.
That's right.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, is there any public comments, either here or on Zoom regarding this sign application?
If anyone on Zoom wants to make a public comment on this item, please raise your virtual hand. Not seeing anyone.
Okay, so commission discussion? Start with you.
I'll be straightforward and say my preference is for not to have the angled sign, to have a front and back sign. I think that's more consistent with the general historic feel. The example given of the one that was shown there at Sushi in the Raw in the grocery store, I feel is more appropriate for a district like that, less appropriate for something we're looking for, the historic district compatibility. The way that there's the current thing set up now feels rather abrupt. I realize that doesn't reflect the final configuration, but overall, I am in favor of not the angled sign, but the just the front and back, I think.
Commissioner Cobden?
I'm inclined to trust that the applicant knows what's best for their business. So I would be happy to let them go with the angled sign. Although I agree with Commissioner Brown that the single angle looks better. But I'm not gonna die on this hill.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I agree with Rod, and also, based on the description of having cars parked and so forth, I am having a hard time imagining that the low parking signs will even be effective. So to me, it feels like a lot more noise that I don't quite understand the value of.
The directional sign, sorry, the directional signs?
Parking, the
are you-
parking.
The parking sign.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna jump in and say I'm the kind of person who appreciates clarification on that because I often park in the wrong place. So I see why it would make sense, especially as someone who's often running late for things as well.
I think the directional signage isn't really in your, it's included in her overall scope, but it's accepted from our standards, so there are exceptions.
And for the record too, I agree with Amy on this point.
And I'll jump in and say, it's wonderful they have parking in the back, so
Yeah.
that's a rare commodity on Zion Street.
Just for the sake of visibility, is putting it right in the center the best spot, really? Or is it where there's a photograph of the proposed parking sign with a tree there? I don't know exactly how big that is or what have you, but would the sign be more visible if it wasn't right in the middle of the lawn and further set from the driveway? Like, would it make more sense closer to the driveway?
Sorry to interrupt, but I'm seeing, like, when I resent you that file, Amy, that little cinder block wall, there should be a little directional sign sitting there, like it is on the other
Yeah.
side.
So I think there'll be one here
Driveway.
and
Yeah.
here, yeah.
And I would, like, be willing to put my money on, if you guys went by the actual site, you would agree that each side of that driveway needs a sign for it to be effective for both sides of the street traffic, but that's all I'll say.
And I'll agree, because there's traffic always pushing you on Zion Street and you traveling from either direction. Personally, I think it's good and helpful. My take, however, on the main sign is that the 90-degree presentation, presumably in the middle of the yard, it's a lot of sign, and it's a little house, and the design guidelines encourage us to, in a neighborhood like this one, create a kind of harmony and not have signage be overbearing two residential properties which are adjacent. So we need to consider, we're tasked to consider compatibility with the overall feel of the street. And so, having said that, the angled sign is it's a lot of sign. The height is proposed at 4 feet off the ground. And I did go look at the situation. Certainly you want to be found. There's a red curb where no parking is allowed to the left of the center of the property, where a sign that is parallel to the road would be the actually most legible configuration. So I would be a fan of either having a sign that's lower than your proposed height, because the shrubbery is low there. It's just a lot of sign for that location. I think it's a very strong sign, and being mindful of the desire to get patients to find the place. They have looked online and know the address. It's not like they're doing an impulse stop in. So I think the sign, the logo, the font colors are all great, but the angled presentation is too much sign, in my opinion. Now, I understand that it doesn't exceed the maximum sign area, but given the site, we're not required to allow the maximum sign area. And it's certainly in our interest to direct as much business to your business as possible, but I think it might be overkill visually. That's my comment.
But just to add on to that.
Can I respond? Am I allowed to respond?
Please, yes.
Okay, so just a couple things, because you can see in the photo where the red curb is, there's someone actively parked at that red curb, which is often, I've gone on a couple of site visits there, and people just park to run across to the tortilla place or the sandwich place or food and juice, and so it's usually pretty hectic. It says, and also the general clientele, because I thought that adding a website on the sign would be good for my client, and they said that they have a lot of elderly clients that call or walk in, and they do take quite a bit of walk-in business. So your point about the website and that sort of thing, I just want to correct it, that not everybody because I assumed the same, and I was corrected by my client, so.
Okay, thanks.
I just wanted to add a clarifying point onto what you're saying, Tom, just to call out some more detail that it's in the signage guidelines. Even though the quote is, even though the ordinance permits up to 24 square feet per sign, the planning commission reviews the sign designed to the scale of the building, and it notes that signs of the past have often been significantly less than a 24 square foot. And then to respond to the comments, having walked by there over the weekend, I think that it's quite visible to people who are walking by. So I think that even reduces the need for an angled sign. So
I think I would like to jump in and add, or add and ask, even if you get the single sign and the 2 parking signs, is that going to triple the number of signs that you currently have? How many signs are there right now?
Well, the client has no permanent signage, so there's an arbor that's a bit dilapidated, and there's discussion of taking that down. I'm not sure what that entails, but that has a banner on it that actually impedes the walkway, and any sign that would go on that arbor would impede the walkway. That's where the previous business had their sign.
Okay.
I guess as far as the sizing, like, it's only 2 feet tall, so I don't know about reducing the height, but if the planning commission is more concerned about the volume of signage that's being viewed, I think it would be, up for discussion to just reduce the sign, but keep the general construction if possible. I don't think we're hung up on it being 6 feet long. That's just what looked good with the logo ratio and it being, a decent height.
I think that my point was that if you have 2 signs pointing to parking with the logo and the business sign, that's 3 signs, all within, what, 100 feet? So perhaps that will help, especially with the walking clientele.
Yeah, and it doesn't have the logo on the parking signs, it just has the icon, so unless the person's familiar with the branding, they're not gonna know that.
Yeah,
parking
sorry,
sign-
that is what I meant, the icon.
And stepping slightly out of my lane, I would, having looked at it and having looked at the place today, a sign on the front porch hanging from the beam on the front porch would be helpful. It's at a higher elevation and visible from the street because it's above cars. That's just like I'm just mentioning an opportunity that the banners sort of take advantage of. To help solve the visibility problem. And when I said the 4 feet high, it's the posts that are proposed.
Okay.
The top of them are at 6 feet, so that's at 4 feet off the ground. So that's a lot of sign.
That's certainly up for discussion. That was just kind of an arbitrary height. I had inquired about what the limitations were in the area with Amy prior, and it sounded kind of vague. So I proposed something arbitrarily. We could certainly adjust the height.
Okay, that's sort of key to my concern about the over visibility of it. The fact that the proposed, as shown anyway, the top of the sign is at 4 feet off the ground, which takes up a lot of visual space right there in that spot.
Happy to look at it. Yeah.
So how should we move ahead toward direction then? Would anyone like to propose a counter to the application?
So, I'm trying to think what the key points are here. So one is a single panel with lettering on both sides for the main sign. And how would you characterize the height thing that you're trying to put in there?
My main concern being that it's 4 feet off the ground, so if it were 2'6" or 3 feet maximum from the ground level to the top of the sign, that would reduce its overbearingness while still being, I think plenty visible.
So to recap then, a single panel,
Perpendicular
perpendicular to the
the
street
road.
with sign it with the, whatever you want to call it, the painting on both sides and a 3-foot maximum. Does that capture everything?
That captures everything as far as I'm concerned. The sign hanging from the frame is very nice.
Oh, do you want to add that in there as well? Do you prefer the?
I prefer it aesthetically.
Yep, I would agree.
Amanda, are you amenable to adding that? You've suggested it, and it looks really nice.
Yeah, I like that design, and it's an added expense to my client, but I would love to do whatever I can to argue the point for the angled sign, just because that was really important. We did walk it. I know you guys walked it, visited it. They live in the business every day, and that was like a real big sticking point for him. So I just would like to take one more chance to reconsider that.
Amanda, can you remind me, I don't know how I've lost track, but the single hanging sign, did you say it would be perpendicular or parallel to Zion Street?
So I'm not for a parallel sign. I heard that mentioned. I don't think it's easy to read, especially in a snap judgment situation where you're gonna have to do it as you're driving by. So I mean, if I was picking, then I would pick perpendicular, but I don't really even want to propose that, so.
So I'll make a motion then that we approve a sign that is a single panel perpendicular to the street with the 3-foot height maximum using the timber post framing as shown in the application.
That's a motion?
That is a motion.
second for that?
And they can put it wherever they want if they decide it's not exactly, because I'm looking at the street drive of like where that would sit for visibility's sake. There's no constraints on that really, correct?
I don't see.
There's nothing in our code that says exactly
Yeah.
where you have to put it. If it gets like too close to, say, the driveway, like maybe Brian would have to make sure it's not gonna impede sight distance and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that would be the only thing.
Commissioner Cobden, do you have a?
I would be okay with them making the choice for perpendicular or parallel. So I'm not stuck on perpendicular.
I'll note that Amanda stated a
Doesn't
strong
want.
preference to not do the parallel version.
And I'm okay with either. My preference would also be for the perpendicular, but I'm okay if it's parallel too, so.
No, she prefers perpendicular to parallel to the street.
That's what I meant.
I'm just saying I don't care. I'm saying
She
I
did-
think that
yeah.
if they need to orient it and put it parallel to make it more visible or perpendicular to make it more visible, to me, that is either or is
And I'm
acceptable.
agreeing with Wendy essentially.
Okay, okay. I have an alternate idea. Hearing what Amanda's saying regarding the strong preference of the clients for the 95-degree angled sign, how about a reduced size?
I would be
Lower.
inclined to see a reduced size that is angled. Because I think it's important that we listen to them here, that they know the optics of their site and their business is their business. And on the other hand, 6 foot by 2 foot is very large sign.
My opinion is that any sign is pretty challenged here, between trees and trellises and walls. You know,
Therefore?
I just don't even see how the angled sign is really that visible either, if there's cars parked there, but.
It seems to me like I would be inclined to just trust them on this one.
That my inclination now is an angled sign, but in a reduced scale.
Still not my preference. I think given the guidelines that we're working under, which I think are appropriate to this location, given there are many other signs along the street that are at a perpendicular angle to the street that people see, I don't find the extra signage to be necessary.
I'm wondering how the banner on the trellis is working. It's like so front and center. That's like the most visible area.
It's also parallel to the street, so it's hard to read like that.
And it's my understanding we're not considering that because they are preparing to remove them once their permanent signage goes in?
Yeah, oh yeah, the banners are coming down.
Right.
There's also a very large overgrown bush on the property that's like just a little further down. So the little property feels like it's in a little overgrown pocket.
That might be something to consider, is trimming it. I'll second Rod's motion.
Well, I have a question about the motion. Do we have, so the motion is for a sign in the proposed size, 2 feet by 6 feet, but at a reduced height,
And a single panel.
a single panel oriented either perpendicular or parallel to the road,
It was
depending on
to
their preference.
approve a single panel, 3 feet max, perpendicular to the road with the timber post framing.
Correct.
Would you go 4 feet? Back up to 4 feet if it's going to be a single panel and reduced?
It's high, 4 feet.
Yeah, but if you're
I would be
driving,
okay with that. I
if
would
you're
be okay
driving,
with
yeah.
that. Yeah. My preference would be to have a taller one, given where the location of this is. A single panel that is a bit taller versus 2 panels that is shorter.
I would vote for a motion that had it at 3.6. Would you like to make another motion?
I would have confirmed the seriousness of that if I could, if that was so are we, Amy has suggested a 4-foot height. Is that too much for you, Tom?
I prefer 3.6.
3.6.
We'll let it come out in the vote.
We'll let it come out in the
In
vote.
the motion, do you want to amend it to 3.6?
Yes,
or
we will
4?
amend it to
Okay.
3.6.
3-6.
Okay,
If
so
we
the
only need 3
motion
votes.
on the table
Exactly.
that's been made by Commissioner Brown, seconded by Ermshar, is to approve the single panel sign at 3.6 foot max, perpendicular.
3 feet, 6
Sorry,
inches.
3.6, 3.5 feet.
Yes.
Max.
3.5.
Yes.
Sorry, I said, okay, sorry, yes, I see where I'm messing up. But that is what I meant. Perpendicular to the road with timber post framing.
Wait, perpendicular? I thought we were giving them the option.
Sorry, we were giving them the option.
Okay.
They expressed the preference for perpendicular.
Whatever angle they prefer.
Yeah, whatever they
or
prefer.
parallel.
However they
Okay,
need
let
to
me-
orient
Yeah.
it to be visible.
Let me restate that. To approve a single panel at 3.5 max feet, perpendicular or parallel to the road with timber post framing.
Yes. So that's a motion.
So moved.
So moved, yes.
It's already been sort of moved and seconded.
Okay.
Okay.
We're just
Roll call?
making sure we've got it. Okay, Commissioner Ermshar,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Chair Cobden, sorry, Vice Chair Cobden,
Yeah, not so fast.
Not yet.
No.
Chair Knight.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
3-1.
Sorry, 3-1, sorry.
My gosh. My chair and my 0.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you guys.
You're still on, Amanda.
Like,
It's okay.
We understand. We understand.
Okay, the next item is item 3, 421 Broad Street, Feather and Bone Acupuncture Herbs and Wellness sign application.
Come on up.
Yep. Yeah.
You can join us at the table, actually.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. And I'm just going to do a brief introduction, and then I may have some questions for you. So business owner Julia Ursus is requesting approval of a sign for Feather and Bone Acupuncture Herbs Wellness at 421 Broad Street. The sign is proposed to hang from the existing freestanding sign support located in front of the building near the sidewalk. Previous signs have recently been approved for that same support area for Rejuvenation Science most recently, and then Golden Point Acupuncture. The building is set back approximately 50 feet from the sidewalk. So, and it's going to be a painted wood material. Background will be white. Letters will be from the historical color, the black from the it'll be black. And then the graphics, the feather graphic will be a goldsmith. It will be two-sided. Dimensions are 3x1, so 6 feet for both sides. And then the lettering style she chose is called Awesome Lethusia.
Would you like to pronounce the font name?
As best as I can, right now, Lethuska, maybe?
I thought it was Lithusica.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's an I, is there?
There appears to be an I.
Well, I wrote an I. It's not, it's possible it's not actually.
Okay.
I just found it online.
I didn't realize that.
It looked nice. It looked like it was within the historical genre. I did a long research finding what actually mother lode, fonts could look like, and I didn't find a whole lot that would resonate with my business, so that was one that seemed good. And I'm willing to, if there are suggestions, I'm willing to revise my research too.
Cool. Any questions from the commission?
I do have a question, just because this little picture I have, I can't tell that it's 3x1. For some reason, the proportions I'm not quite getting, and so I don't really see, it's 1 foot tall and 3 feet
That's a
wide?
good, that's probably
or
a better rendition. I didn't create the image that she has on the file, but I did create that, and it would look more in proportion to that, how it's about a foot, right? And then, so that's what I can say.
Extremely rectangular.
Yeah,
So it's long, it's wide.
it's more
skinny.
long, yeah, like 3
Gotcha.
times as long as it is high.
It looks like in the staff report, there's a sort of a shaded area. It's kind of like white on white, but you can see that just slight, the border, the vertical border.
Yeah, but those are not 3-to-1
Yeah,
ratios.
I don't think the dimensions of the sign came
Okay,
in
okay.
the application. I mean, they're written in the application, but it's not the dimension of the exhibit that was given.
Okay, so any questions? Any public comment on this, either in the House or on Zoom?
Anyone on Zoom wish to make a public comment? Ooh, what's going on here?
I can tell myself right now that I'm gonna need, yeah, it's going to have a different proportion slightly. I imagine that the lettering's gonna be a little smaller even, and that feather and bone is gonna be centered a little bit more to the right.
Anyone on Zoom wish to make a public comment, please raise your virtual hand. Not seeing anyone.
Okay, and any commission discussion? It's a really great font. Yep, really nice, lovely proportion.
I'll motion to approve.
Second, anywhere? I'll second.
Hold on. They're going so fast. Okay, Commissioner Ermshar.
Yes.
Commissioner Cobden.
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden. Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
And Chair Nye.
Yes.
4-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item 4, 110 York Street, The Garden.
Yeah, I'm not
Sign
sure. I
application.
have not been able to get a hold of the applicant for this one.
I think she's here.
Oh, you're here. Oh, good. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I called this morning and I just spoke with somebody about like where I might need to go and so.
Okay, you can come on right here. So, yeah,
Welcome.
This is an application for 110 York Street. Heidi Walker Business Owner is requesting approval for a sign for the garden. The sign would hang from an existing wood beam near the north window. I did try to reach out to try to figure out exactly where it was going, and I couldn't get a really good response, so it's good you're here. You can maybe describe it a little better. And then the information I have in here, I also got an updated sign plan with metal and some, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, it was just dropped off and I got it it was in my inbox, so I just added it to the agenda yesterday, so.
I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is, wait, I don't have it up there yet. Hold on, let me share my screen. So,
Yeah, the size is a little tricky because the beam is very low. And when I spoke with a person who had the space prior, she said that they kind of had to mount it like, in the corner there. And so that could still be done. I did go ahead and I just have them on my phone, like I made just like a piece of paper, kind of the same shape to show where it could go exactly.
You mocked it up and then took a photo? Is there a way you can get that onto the
Beam it up?
screen? Yeah, beam it up to,
I'm not sure
you
if
can get it on the screen unless you were to join the Zoom. If you want to can you email it to me real quick?
But basically, I'm not sure. My cousin, he got a little bit excited and went ahead and just made the sign, as you can see. It's like he does the laser cutting and stuff, and I had kind of like told him, and he just got excited, and so he made it. He actually made 2 of them, so it's like you can have one, you know, one side and one the other side. But there's another option, just putting it in the front like that, right there too, where it could hang. If we didn't want to just like place it up in the corner, you know, like right there.
Isn't that how Treats used to have it when they were there?
I think
No,
they
there-
did have one.
I sent you a picture of what was there.
Oh, you did? I didn't see
Yeah,
it.
because I was curious. I'm like, that's a tough spot. So how did Treats do it? And
Yeah.
they had a sign actually on the wall.
Oh, it's
Oh,
on the wall.
They
Okay.
had an ice cream cone on the wall, but didn't they have something?
I thought, because I seem to remember
Open the picture.
dodging my head a little bit.
Just open the picture.
Maybe it changed.
I mean, unless they had another iteration also at some point. That's very possible.
I think I think they might have had another sign. I'll
I can call
share this
Samantha
picture,
Shady
but-
right now.
Yeah. How'd you do it?
What did you do?
And what was your, I could email it to you if you want to see what it was, but I don't have your email.
It's Amy, AMY, dot Wolfson, WOLFSON.
I don't even know how they fit it on the wall. It's like so small.
CA.gov.
I thought there was something overhead.
I feel like there was.
too.
It's kind of a hard spot.
There's
to
an ice cream
see.
cone there, but I
There
think
was
there was
a-
something.
You can see here.
Oh,
it was,
yeah.
It was at the side. Oops.
Oh, okay.
Little side thing poked out too.
Is that on
Yeah.
Google Maps?
It's in the historic imagery. Oops.
What? What?
Historic imagery?
Yeah, you can see historic images for Street View, and I have to use this for work.
You can go back to Street View from like
You're a very handy
2007.
commissioner.
So, I don't know if you guys can see that there.
Yeah, it just kind of takes up the space under the awning.
Yeah, okay, with the cute little hand.
Got it.
All right.
And-
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
There's a
And
hand.
Heidi, that's what you're thinking?
that's right.
Maybe on the ends of the roof
Yeah, yeah.
or something like that?
Yeah, exactly, kind of like that. Because it's a really tough spot, like to not hit somebody's head. And so my cousin and my uncle, they do carpentry and stuff, and so they were gonna try to like mount it somewhere, you know, either on the sides like that where it wouldn't hang and hit anybody,
Right,
or
be visible both from Broad Street and from
exactly,
commercial.
exactly.
Are you planning
Or
on,
the front?
and you're proposing to paint the metal?
No, originally the first one that had the paint color chips was like, I was just gonna make it myself, and so I had like put in this application, I don't know if you're seeing the first one.
Yeah.
I told my cousin, oh, I need help with the sign, he went ahead and made this for me, a little a little early, but I was gonna see if there was some way that could work. 'Cause I do like it, and I like I think that the metal's kinda cool with the,
The metal overhang?
but it's kind of up to you, just because it is such a very limited area, it's kind of like you have to make the sign go where it fits.
Where it doesn't bump heads and is
Yeah.
visible.
Exactly. I'm kind of at a loss for what to do, honestly. I kind of came for advice, because I was like, this way or this way, but whatever you prefer, basically, because, I don't want anybody hitting their head.
Well, I think this would be the time to ask for any public comment, because I think we'll start to get into discussion. So is there any public comment in the House for this sign or on Zoom?
If anyone on Zoom wishes to make a public comment, please raise your virtual hand. Not seeing any.
Okay, so,
I'll jump in.
yeah.
I actually am really pleased to see a sign made ahead of time. I wouldn't always say this, but it is nice to know exactly what it's gonna look like. I personally like this. Personally, I'm not crazy about the font, but that's really not a game changer for me. What I would like to see is it a little less shiny.
That will happen naturally with time. I could like go ahead and like dull it down if you want me to.
Yeah, and also I find it strange that I'm saying this for the record because normally when people propose quick rusting corrugated tin, I cringe a little bit. But in this case, actually, I think it would be nice to see. That's all I have.
Commissioner Brown?
Commissioner Brown feels differently. Actually, I do like the design a lot. I think the graphic, and I'm fine with the font and everything. And I think that the hand-painted sign would work very well just where the treat sign was and such. I have a bit more problem though with this laser cut metal. I'm trying to envision how this would fit with the mother lode aesthetic, or thinking how somebody could have handmade that. And yeah, thinking through the manufacturing process, it doesn't seem consistent to me with the mother lode aesthetic. So I liked your application as it was presented, and I'm 100% in favor of that. So.
Okay.
Commissioner Ermshar?
Yeah, I mean, I would add similar comments to Rod, and, you know, also even just the sign that your cousin made, it's a cool sign, and it's,
It is,
you know,
100%.
it's not about that. I would also further have concern about how it would actually fit into the eve in a way that didn't look real kind of, hodgepodgey, random-y. Not that that didn't exist in history, but I just don't know how it would fit very well, as opposed to something that was constructed and designed to be in that kind of angular space. I think you could still use them somewhere inside your shop, you know, so I would be in favor of the hand-painted sign in that little crook of your roof. I don't mind the font. You might not have room for as much of the leaves, both of the leaves or something, I'm not sure, but, yeah.
I would also add that if you go the route recommended by Commissioner Brown and Armstrong, that you do on both sides for visibility in the same way that Treats did, but also with like a little sign next to the door. Just give yourself that capacity.
I think it's a great idea.
Or, I guess you could, in a way, you could use that, what you have here, to stencil onto the window. I know Delish Bish, who I believe did not come to us for a sign approval, had their logo or their name stenciled on the window before, and it was really easy to see them that way.
Yeah, I was gonna do that. My neighbor, one of the business neighbors makes those down there, and so he was gonna make one of those for me. I do have like I guess a comment or a question. I have actually seen some of these metal signs. There's actually one, the Herbal Remedy. There's another Apothecary. And I was actually like kind of surprised because I thought, oh, like, you know, my cousin went ahead and made this for me, and I was like, oh, well, it'll look cool because he's made them for my aunt and uncle. And, you know, they call the house the dirt hole. Like, it's so like old and rustic. They're always finding like old things. It's up in Plumas County. And they do look really cool. Like, they do look really rustic, and like their whole house is like very old looking, you know, like, and it really goes well with it because when it does weather, it ages. And I think it's kind of, yes, they wouldn't have laser cutters back in that day, but it's kind of like a twist on our modern craftsmanship that we do have available today. And I just, you know, I did notice that because I thought, oh, wow, you know, metal sign. And then, of course, you like start to see things because it's new in your universe. And I noticed, oh my gosh, I hope that like I hope she doesn't get mad because I have a metal sign and she's an herbal place too, you know. But there literally is a person like right around the corner with a metal sign for them. So I guess, yeah, that's like my only comment on like the metal sign is that I have seen other people with the sign. I've seen them firsthand age, and they really do look kind of cool and old. And I do think that it is kind of like a modern craft that people are doing now that, you know, I mean, I can try to do the handmade thing, you know, that was my first thing. I don't know how well I'm really gonna be able to make it, you know, to be quite honest. Like, I kind of was just like, well, I'm gonna make myself a sign, I'm gonna make myself a sign. I will totally still do that if that's what you think, but I just maybe want to maybe have you guys reconsider the metal sign just because I think it would actually look nice. And that's just my honest opinion for how I feel about the sign. Sorry. I know I don't, I've never done anything like this before. I'm kind of nervous. And yeah, I mean, I'll do whatever you guys say
Can
I
I
need to do.
respond on it? Since I was one that was in part, I have some comments.
I'd like to
too.
throw in
Yeah.
a note, though, like when
Yeah.
a commissioner, I think we're doing our best to bear in mind the historic district context as a whole. And strong, creative, modern statements that stand out, which may look awesome, we need to consider the overall context and how much differentness and how much creativity it will allow before it becomes an overabundance of creativity, and then the signage distracts from the architecture. And our ordinance scheme is designed to highlight the 19th century architecture that we have in abundance and pretty good, and it's in pretty good shape. It gives the impression of a historic town. So that's the overall, that's what we're doing when we say we like or don't like a thing. It does contribute or it contributes positively or negatively to that overall goal. Does that make sense?
It does. I thought I was doing that with like the metal on metal, you know, I thought that was highlighting it. And then like the font I thought was very like an old typewriter kind of looking, you know, like.
Yeah.
So those were like.
The
why
problem
I
with
went that
making, the
way.
problem with making a sign in advance is that you like it, and then we feel pressured to really heavily justify it because it's already made, because we don't want to cause any harm to an applicant. That's my feeling. So we need to proceed as though that sign doesn't exist, because it wasn't applied for and it wasn't given to us as an option. Having said that, did you want to say something further, Wendy?
Well, there was just a couple of things that I heard that my opinion, right, and there's 4 of us here today. My opinion is that my personal rejection of this metal sign is not because it's metal. So it's not to say that metal signs couldn't ever be approved. I also think it's important to say thank you for, pursuing the proper channel for your sign, and probably some of the signs that you might be referencing, unfortunately, are neighbors who did not do that. And there is, then an enforcement process that you won't have to be a part of because you're coming to us the first time. You're coming to this commission, which is volunteer citizens, and it rotates over time. And the reason that matters, that you're participating in this process, in my personal opinion, as both a merchant here and a citizen, is because you are agreeing to what the public voted said. This is what we want as a historical ordinance. So I'm sorry, I've had a personal experience on my residence where there were things that were like not allowed for my home when I came through the proper channels. So I know what that feels like, and I understand. I'm not looking at this sign from a matter of what are other people doing. I'm looking at the sign in reference to our historical ordinances, and strictly that, does it meet or not meet those criteria that the people put in place, and then, we here have to interpret. So I would also ask you just, you know, as another business owner, the effectiveness of this sign, you know, so really the sign is designed to attract people to your business. It's also a representation of your branding, which I think, you know, comes through clearly with the leaf, and you chose a font that resonates with you and your brand. I might venture to say that this sign wouldn't really even be that visible as it sits, you know, so I do think that you will have a more readily spotted sign that is working for you if there is some contrast in the color with a wood painted sign or a metal sign maybe that somehow has some contrast to it. So, you know, it's not, you know, my opinion, my input is not a matter of trying to impede your business whatsoever. You know, it's to be congruent with the overall theme of the town, which in itself is actually an asset to all of us. And then also, you know, just, you know, personally, I think it will be a more impactful sign, you know, for you.
An option to consider is a paint that metal sign. It might increase visibility. And if the paint would start to fail and the edge get a little rusty, that might be kind of cute. But the visibility would be increased if it wasn't That's a thought that I had as well. If it were allowed to rust, if that is to say, if it was pre-rusted, it wouldn't be very. I don't know if it served you well. I think Wendy's point is good. I personally, I like the font, I like the graphic, but the fact that it's metal doesn't fit, in my opinion. Okay. If it were painted, I think it would be better.
The sun also reflects metal too, which kind of like does a thing that attracts people too. You know, it's like, so like if you're walking down the street, kind of catches your eye because you're like, oh, metal, ooh. You know, and then like the lights reflect too. So that was kind of like another one of my things where I didn't think it was, I thought it was actually going to be clever where the visibility would kind of catch a person's eye with that. But
My opinion is that a shiny metal sign is not what we want.
It will certainly catch your eye, but not necessarily in the way that you want your eye to be caught.
okay.
I mean, I think we can all relate to.
In the context of all the other business owners and the aesthetic that we've all worked together to maintain, a shiny metal sign would really stick out in a way that's maybe good for you, but not so great for the town as a whole, which is what we're doing. That's what we're looking, that's what we're overseeing, I guess.
I think, I want to point out though that there is precedent for metal signs, just not shiny ones.
Right.
So you're absolutely correct there, that there are metal signs around town and we've approved them and we like them. But again, just tempered.
More rustic, the interpretation, not
so,
quite so modern.
what was the one that we did fairly recently next to the National? You were the.
Atronova.
Atronova.
Atronova, who actually came out with a shiny, a shiny outcome that was not expected.
Shiny, and the shininess isn't.
It doesn't look as good as it could have.
Yeah, it's not what. Yeah.
And I think all of us are in agreement that metal is okay, but speaking for myself personally, it was more the modern look of a laser etched piece of metal, which did not fit into the thing, so.
And personally, I like the applicant's argument that this is a modern take on mother lode resources, to paraphrase.
Which in my opinion doesn't fit within the
Yeah, here we are.
mother lode style.
Here we are.
Yeah. So with that, I think I'd like to make a motion if I could, unless there's more discussion. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
If you'd like to propose a motion,
Okay.
please do.
I move that we approve the hand-painted logo as presented in the application with the options to put the signage on either end or both ends, as well as on the front of the building to
Either end of the awning.
either end of the awnings, thank you, as well as on the front of the building to give multiple places to increase visibility and provide that.
Can I just interject really quickly? How would you feel if you could also use this and hang it inside in the window?
I mean, it's a very small space, so I don't really have like space to just like make, I mean, I don't think I have space to put it in there. He made 2 of them too, and like, I really, I thought you had, like, I thought you had to have the sign physically like made to show it to people so that they knew what the deal was. And so I'm sorry that I had that made before that. When I was like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna hand paint this sign? Like, I kind of got to the point where I was like, I just don't know how I'm gonna really do that and make that. And so then he brought it in there, but I don't think I'm gonna have it. I mean, I can't put those inside. I don't have any space.
Just an idea.
There are sign creators around here that will, do create that for you, the hand painted or create the sign for you, so.
Okay, sorry, go ahead,
Sorry, is there a
Robin.
modification to the motion then?
No, that was just an idea because you have the sign and you
Yeah.
love the sign and, but going back to your motion,
I just want to ask, I guess, if we need to specify or that the bottom of the sign cannot extend beyond that corner brace. Is that stating the
We have
obvious?
put that condition on
Okay.
previous signs,
It
so
just,
I don't
that's-
have it on this one.
I'm guessing, I don't know the clearance there though, but I'm guessing that would be.
I think what you've said before is it just can't go below the awning structure.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I'm looking at this historic imagery again.
yeah, I would refer to what the treats had when they had that there.
Yeah, I think it was just even with the bottom of the sign is even with the
Even with the
awning.
awning.
Okay, so that's enough clearance out to the,
I think
And it
It
gives
must
her
be.
it's the
more
clearance is there now.
visual
Yeah.
space, yeah.
Yeah, just go straight across.
So,
I think there is language too as to the minimum height off the sidewalk. Is there?
There is,
There
but,
is.
8 feet, but this is not.
It's not actually in the ordinance.
and
Okay.
But
they
we
can't.
had routinely added it in the conditions. I don't know where it came from. It might be in the design guidelines, but it's not actually written in the ordinance.
Okay. Well, I can't imagine the applicant would want to hang it to where it would bump people's heads, but it's you understand what we're discussing, right? That it not extend below the lowest extent of the awning? Yeah. So we're sort of unanimously not in favor of a metal sign.
This metal sign.
This
Right.
shiny metal sign,
Shiny metal
correct.
sign.
I would be in favor of it if it was not shiny, and I'm outruled.
And I would be in favor of it if it were painted. So,
so the motion's on the table with the addition.
would you like to
of
say the motion again?
So the motion, maybe let Amy
Yeah,
repeat it.
it's the motion made by Commissioner Brown to approve the hand-painted sign as presented with the option to place it on either end of the awning as well as in front of the building with the condition that the sign shall not extend below the awning, the
Lowest part of
the
it.
lowest part of.
And to clarify both ends, it can be on either or
Oh.
both ends of the awning.
Oh, okay, that's what I meant, but that is not what I
Okay.
said. Okay.
Yes, so moved.
Second?
Oh, second. I thought you were saying, I will
No,
second it.
that's a
You
question.
were
Is
asking,
there a
yes,
second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I'll start with Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Ermshar.
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden.
Yes.
Chair Nye.
Yes.
Moved. Motion carries. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kyle comes out.
This building again.
Yeah. I'm recusing myself.
Oops. Catching up.
You have to mention a reason, right?
I don't know if the agenda item Next is
Four.
419 Spring Street. I am recusing myself for proximity to my residence.
Thank you.
Approved?
So item 5, 419 Spring Street, siding and window replacement. Are the applicants here?
They are on Zoom. Oopsie. Oh, they're moving around on me. Okay. Michelle, are you able to hear us? Oh, you might be on Zoom, or might be on mute. Michelle, are you able to hear us? Oh, shoot. You know, the last time we had an audio issue, I had to unplug it and then plug it back in. That's what I do.
But you did see her?
She is on,
Okay.
but I'm got an audio error message here. I don't, I'll try it. Hold on, I'm gonna try this. And then that. Plug back in. And now I don't have the error message. Michelle, are you able to hear us? I already sent it.
Can
Oh.
you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yay! Yay!
Okay, I'm just going to do a quick introduction, and then the commission may have some questions for you.
Okay.
We don't hear her very well, though.
Yeah, she's a bit quiet. Do you need to change your audio
I thought I did, but
on the
maybe I
computer?
didn't.
It might have,
Yeah,
yeah.
hold on.
Okay, how's that? Is that better?
Yeah, it's not you, it's on us. Hold on.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Now we go. Okay, so this is an application by I guess, I think siblings of the Lepeltier family?
Yes.
Okay, this is on a building, we've seen it a couple times before. It is shown on the 1898 Sanborn map, which has a residential structure shown in that place. However, building records show that the structure was destroyed by fire in 1982. The current structure was constructed in 1984, and there's not really any record of what the original structure had looked like. At the April 16th meeting, the Planning Commission had approved replacement of wood windows with vinyl windows and replacement of wood lap siding with the Boral True Exterior Cove Dutch lap siding. And that was it's to withstand weather exposure. And then Planning Commission at the October 14th, 2021 meeting approved the same for the west side of the building. The current proposal is to use that same material on the east side of the building, and also consider the same replacement of the vinyl windows. It'll be replaced in a like-for-like style, just with the Boral product is a cementous fiber instead of a true wood. And I think that's all I have, and I'll go ahead and get to some of the examples, or I'll show this picture of the side we're talking about here.
And it's the same material as the west side.
Yes, same as the west and the south side.
Any questions, for the applicant?
Nope.
Staff? Okay, any public comment on this from in the chambers or online?
If anyone on Zoom wants to make a public comment, please raise your virtual hand. Seeing none.
Discussion?
No?
Looks just fine to me.
can I make a motion? Motion to approve?
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden,
Yes.
Chair Nye.
Yes.
It's easy when there's just three of you.
Oh,
Well, and when the applicant has such a good history of
Yeah.
outcomes. Thank you.
And a really thorough application, too, so thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you very much. Be talking to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Next up, item 6, Friar Tuck's Parklet application. Hello?
Can Wendy come back?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
we get her. Probably wasn't expecting that.
Does that music mean something to us?
No, it's, I got an email. That's what it means.
That you've arrived at the table, I guess. Your theme music.
Okay, so this is our first parklet application, our first like semi-permanent application, I would say. So in September 2022, council had adopted an ordinance 20, sorry? Oh, sorry, I'll let the commissioners come back. Sorry about that. Can you get this on? Says to speak. Okay, so in September 2022, council had adopted ordinance 2022-10, which provides a framework for allowing restaurant and alcohol service businesses to operate within the public right-of-way upon approval of an outdoor dining encroachment permit issued by the city engineer. Outdoor dining encroachments allow businesses to operate adjacent to their brick and mortar business, either on the sidewalk or in this case, in up to 2 parking spaces. And they do have to be immediately in front of the space, though, like you'll see in this application, because of, he's got a handicap space right in front of us, right in front of him, he's shifting over and using a space in Ubobo, so Ubobo's owner had to sign on as a joint applicant for this particular application. So let's see, 2 parking spaces. It's going to be in front of 107 and 111 North Pine Street. It will be used for outdoor dining associated with Friar Tuck's. The applicant will improve the space by constructing a raised deck platform to be flush with the existing sidewalk curb. Platform will be enclosed by a 3-foot high metal rail consistent with the Pine Street Bridge rail design for 4 out of the 7 rail sections, and the other, and I'll go to a design of it here in a minute, but a protective bollard will be placed. So in his design, he's got a protective bollard on each end, but the only issue with that is the way they're shown on the plan, they'd be located in the adjacent parking spaces. So there is a recommended condition that that either the parklet design be shortened so that the parklets can be totally within there, or that they be actually constructed as part of the framing of the parklet itself. So, and talked to the city engineer, and he said that would be a fine option as well. So either of those. So I did want to make sure that you knew that that was a recommendation in there. He's not really proposing any lighting other than some like low-key battery-operated lamps on the tables. Noise still has to meet our noise standards, and I think that is all. I will go ahead and pull up the design here in a minute.
And before we get into discussion, I actually have to recuse myself from this also
Oh.
due to proximity to my business. So I'll be back.
I think go ahead, but since it's a city right-of-way project.
Okay.
So I don't know, but I don't know, I mean,
Russ?
we can see if Russ wants to weigh in.
Okay.
It's a little
I'd
different
be happy to
than-
stay.
And we're just making a recommendation to the city engineer. We're not taking actual action on it.
Perfect.
So all those things. Russ, are you there?
I am.
Do you understand the question? So,
Trying to get the buttons to work. Yes.
okay.
So the question is,
Can Wendy stay?
we have a conflict over this due to proximity.
To my business.
I would say yes, because even though the right-of-way wouldn't make a difference, it's still a private business application. And your proximity rules would still apply to this application.
Okay.
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 All right, well, that's how that is.
So I just mentioned that, 7 of them will have, oh, I'm not sharing, hold on, let me share my screen.
You had moved to
so you
bollards.
see what I have. So there's, I think it was, did I say 7 sections that will have this motif with that emulates the Pine Street Bridge, and then other sections will have just the bars.
Okay.
Well, I guess we could start asking questions. Yeah. Did you want to start?
I do, and forgive me if this is clearly written out. What is the material going to be for the porch? Or for the parklet?
The decking.
The base.
decking, yeah.
I think it's like a decking material, correct? Yeah.
But wooden or Trex or? Ah, okay,
Whatever that's called, heavy duty.
great, thank you.
Composite stuff.
Composite stuff.
In that color, that's a sample?
We can go with whatever works for the design, whatever it would want to be. It's a compost, let's say.
Okay,
That's a good concrete color, matches the,
Yeah, just whatever matches, whatever makes it blend well. Yeah.
and so the Pine Street Bridge looking railing is going to alternate with just the verticals? Do they
Yeah,
alternate?
kind of like around where sushi is, that same railing. The same people that did it
Yeah,
said
yeah.
that they would do the same one that they've done. Yeah.
So one panel with the crosses and one with,
Yeah, the way I understand it, there's 7, and they would have 1, 2, 3, it would be in every other panel of 7-foot panels, yeah.
that was my question. So regarding the bollards, your preference would be to incorporate bollards into the parklet construction itself versus shortening the parklet by what, 8 inches or?
I imagine it probably would come down to how difficult it is to do one or the other. I
Right.
mean, we want to maximize, get as much space as
Yeah.
you can. But whatever would work the best in order for safety for the cars and, whatever we need to do in that. But however they build that decking, if it makes sense to incorporate it or shorten it, I'm fine either way.
Well, from I guess from our purview, built-in bollards would affect the aesthetic, and so that's something we wouldn't know now, whereas if you build according to this plan, we know what it is, so it doesn't have to come back to us.
Right.
If the bollards were incorporated in the parklet itself, it might change it aesthetically, and then we'd have to look at it again.
No, I'd rather go with whatever would work, whatever fits into your.
The city engineers in the house would we like to involve him in a conversation regarding bollards? It would,
Yeah, but come up to the mic so that
yeah.
you get caught on that.
Well, when we were putting together the ordinance, we just didn't want anything being sunk into the street except for the bollards. We're allowing the bollards to be mounted into the street. So there would be some advantages to having the bollards take up the corners because you'd be able to mount to them, like weld brackets on the bollards to help support the decking. But we could sort that out when we work with the applicant on the final construction. But that would just be a thought. That's the only allowance that we have to actually mount into the street is the bollard itself. And then we also don't want to encroach on the adjacent parking stalls too much, because it'll make it more difficult to park in those parking stalls if the bollards are sitting out there.
So you'd be fine with like two bollards on each side rather than one if it were incorporated? So
I thought they were on the corners, right? I mean,
that would be 4 or?
yeah, 2 on each end.
Yeah, one on each end.
Well, I
Yeah,
think that's what.
No, one on
Brian
each end
said.
would be sufficient.
Oh,
One on
on
each
the
end.
outside corner?
Just
Yeah.
on the outside corners, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you
At a
wouldn't want your
minimum.
diners to be impacted by an impactful car,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Good for safety.
Yeah. Okay, because in this plan view, it does show a single bollard centered on each end.
It's on each end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we would,
Because
We-
I'm just trying to get
I
a
don't,
handle on what.
well,
what-
the only
what would
problem with that
actually
is
develop.
it encroaches into the parking stalls.
Right, so what the thing we were discussing was if a bollard, independent of the parklet structure, were outside the adjacent parking spots, then the parklet would shrink by whatever that is, like,
Size of the bollard.
yeah, the size of the bollard, like maybe 8
Yeah.
inches on each end.
Yeah, it could, that's what we could do. The bollard could be centered on the line,
Yeah.
you know, that'd be.
Okay, so
right on
that
the
would
line.
cost practically nothing in
It's
space.
just wherever the parking is, yeah, whatever it takes.
Okay,
All right.
thanks, Brian.
You bet.
Thanks, Brian.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, do we have any public comments?
I'd actually like to say something.
Yeah,
Sure.
I actually really like that, being a restaurateur and.
please identify yourself.
I'm
Right.
Chris Lockhart with Nourish Sushi, 106 Union Street. And this is a great idea. It's a great addition to this restaurant and to our downtown. We're promoting people come here to see the stars, and what better to sit outside our little town and you can see the stars, you know? I think it's a nice idea. And I think it would look good downtown there.
Cool,
So-
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Any public comment online?
Sorry. If anyone wishes to make a public comment on Zoom, please raise your virtual hand. See none?
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 Okay.
Yep.
Any commission discussion? Well, I'll say that you've followed the the ordinance to the letter.
Thank you.
And it looks really good. And I'm with him on its addition to the cityscape. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is our path forward for approval?
Well, you're just making a recommendation to the city engineer, so
Okay, so it's a motion to recommend.
I guess it's I don't even know if it needs to be that formal. This is our first one.
Okay, yeah.
It's always
But-
a first.
Yeah.
If you want to make it very clear what each of you guys are recommending, you can do that.
Yes, please. Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve, to recommend.
Do we need to add in anything to talk about the bollards or anything like that?
Oh, I have a condition in there that he can either build it into the structure or reduce the width, I guess that's the width.
The absolute encroachment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
is
so
key.
it's not encroaching into the
Okay.
adjacent.
I'll second the motion.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden.
Yes.
Chair Nye.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
So best of luck to you for the process.
Yeah.
Thank
Great
you.
to see you.
Look forward to
I
seeing it.
just want to tell you, I really appreciate, being part of the community. And I think it's a blessing for the community to have a place to hang out and make it really nice. And I've always been a proponent to make it a cool, romantic town, not to have some obstructive tents sitting around and, all that stuff, just make it, it'd be so cool to just be part of it.
The tents had their moment. There were some good tents.
So I thank you for, I thank
And the goal of crafting the ordinance was to make it so, and thank you for
thank you for
doing such a trouble-free.
opportunity to do it, really.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ken's going to be celebrating its 100th.
We got our 50th anniversary, and, come and celebrate with us, yeah. Gonna give
They're gonna
away
close
give
the streets.
away a lot of good stuff.
All right.
Congratulations.
50% off fondue.
Ah, nice.
Can I propose a short bio break?
Yes.
5
We are-
minutes?
We are going to have a short recess.
How long? Do we want to?
Mic's on. Okay, next we have item 7, 531 Searles Avenue, Formula Business CUP, continued for April 20th. Do we have an applicant?
Yes, they are on Zoom.
I hope their sound is
Well,
good today.
I can't remember who, one of them was able to get sound, but it doesn't look like.
I think they had to call in.
Hi, I'm here, Jace Robinson.
Hi, Jason, I'm
Hey,
trying to pull
Jason.
in Michael. But we got Jason with sound. Not sure why it's, yeah. Sometimes they don't let me pull him as a panelist. That's all right. Try to do that. So just give them a chance to do a video if they wanted to show their video. Michael, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, and I don't have Stan or Paul on there. Are they going to be joining us?
Yeah. No, not today.
Not today. Okay. All right. All right. Let me go ahead and give a little introduction. So this was an item that was continued from last meeting. It's an application for a use permit to allow Big Brand Tires to operate a formula service business at 531 Searles Avenue. They aren't proposing any exterior alterations to the building other than the signage, except with respect to, oh, sorry, let me get to the next part of it. So, just as a reminder, there was a variance issued to the prior business that allowed, and this was in 1993, the freestanding sign that is there now, allowing it to be larger than it is for our standard sign standards, and allowing an internal illumination, which can only be on during business hours. Again, the third sign that's on the third lowest sign was never approved, and the applicant has agreed to remove that. At the April meeting, I put today's date, but that's not possible. So at the last meeting in April, the commission voted to approve the sign on the building, changing the letters to white, non-illuminated, and font as presented, and continued the conditional use permit to the extent to the next regular meeting today, with general consensus that it will be approved with an appropriate pylon sign design revision. Direction was provided to the applicant to revise the pylon sign to be more reflective of Nevada City businesses and a Nevada City aesthetic, which does not include strong branding statements or logos. Representative Michael Humbach, working with their sign designer Paul Winklewiak, I'm so sorry, I probably butchered that, Paul, have provided revised options for the pylon sign for the commission's consideration. Their preference is for option 1, which is their full branding logo, and I'll pull them up here in just a minute. Their full branding logo with I think red letters, red, white, and black. The option 2 was to provide a blue background and white lettering featuring the tire logo, and that's consistent with what was approved essentially for the building. And option 3, which is the same as option 2, except for without the tire logo. So I'll pull those up, and then that's all I have for the staff report.
And I just have a request of the applicants to just say, since we don't have you on camera, to say who you are. There are three of you, is that correct?
I think there's just 2 of them right now.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind doing that, if we get into sort of a round robin discussion, which may or may not happen, but it helps if we know how to address you to respond. Okay?
Sure, I'll start. My name is Jason Robinson. I work at Big Brand Tire in the real estate department.
Okay.
And I am Michael Humbaugh with Big Brand, and I work in the permits department.
Okay. Are there any questions from the commission for the applicants?
No.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add to Amy's report?
No, happy to be on here with you guys again. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Yeah, and thank you for coming back with options for us.
Of
course. Is there any public comment on this application, either in the House or from the greater public online?
I have no other attendees on there.
No other attendees? All right, well, let's begin commission discussion then, if any. Who would like to begin, if any?
I'll just say I appreciate coming back with the options. I know we had discussion among a number of topics last time, and we've talked about different constraints within the prior approvals and such, and I appreciate the applicant's amenability to coming back with these revised sign looks, so.
Yeah, agreed. This is a curiosity, it's really of no import. Did it always have, was the second sign always free flat repair?
I think that's
that what
what
it
you
says?
had,
I
I
didn't
think
compare
that
it
is
to
what
the
they
last
had on
packet.
the last
Yeah.
one too, yeah.
Amy, anything?
Nope.
Okay, and let's see, I have a strong preference for option 3. I think that, and the font is your branded font, which is cool, and I also think it looks good. It's an attractive font. The logo exists on the building, and I think it's a clean. Option 3 is a very clean, direct look, and you'll be repainting the sign, I understand, so that's nice. That's good. That's all I have to say. Any?
I prefer option 3. I think it's the cleanest, most legible sign, personally. Branding, even if branding or logos were not part of our purview, which they are, I still think it looks the best, so looks great.
Want to add anything at this point?
I agree with both of you.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the, would you, is there an approval
Conditional use permit.
process? Do we need a little guidance through that?
Well, only because it's a CUP, so generally we would make a motion for the CEQA exemption, which I can read into.
Okay, yeah, please do.
Determine the project categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to section 15303 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, which exempts small new equipments and facilities.
So I move we find it CEQA exempt.
I'll second the motion.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Ermshar?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden?
Yes.
Chair and I?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. And then the second one would be to approve the use permit subject to conditions of approval as provided in the staff report pursuant to section 17.70.040C of the Nevada City Municipal Code, making findings A through C in the staff report.
So moved.
I'll second.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Ermshar?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden?
Yes.
Chair and I?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Oh, to move, sorry, we didn't include which option.
That was option 3.
I was assuming it was option 3, but I just want to make sure that was clear in the record.
Thank you.
You can amend the motion there without us voting on it again?
Yeah, I think I'm okay
Okay.
unless Russ pipes in.
And that's it?
I think we're done there.
Okay. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, and wish you the best in your location.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I just make a quick clarification here? So sign 3, just from my notes on our end, sign 3's been approved as well as the building sign?
Yeah, that was essentially approved at the last meeting.
Perfect. Thank you guys very, very much for your time.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
What is next? Oh, item 9, 106 Union Alley Nourish Sushi Outdoor Dining Conditional Use Permit. Correct?
We do have, well, we can do it later,
Oh, yeah,
but
no.
we do need to continue the public art ordinance to a date certain, and it should be the next meeting.
Okay. Do we need to move to continue it?
Yes, I do need that.
I move
So-
that we continue it.
So seconded.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Ermshar.
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden.
Yes.
And Chair Nye.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, my final recusal for the day is for item 9, due to proximity of my business.
Okay.
Good thing we don't have more business owners on the commission. Don't get anywhere.
Mine's not in downtown Nevada City. Okay, yes, item 9, 106 Union Alley, Nourish Sushi. Hello, welcome to the table.
So I'll just provide a brief staff report, and then they may have some questions for you. This is a use permit for an existing, or for an outdoor dining area in an existing pedestrian alley. I don't know how else to it's not a driving alley. It's between 104 and 106 Union Alley, associated with the Nourish Sushi restaurant at 106 Union Alley. At the meeting, at the February 11th, 2004 meeting, the Planning Commission approved the demolition of a 1960s automobile service station and approved the architectural review for what you see there today, which is for like a 14,496 square foot building. That was constructed in 2006. Staff approved, and I think the architect for that is in here today. Staff approved the interior kitchen improvements for the 1,224 square foot restaurant space for Nourish Sushi in October 22. This application is for a use permit to add 215 square feet of outdoor dining area associated with the restaurant. The applicant will improve the space by adding a gate at the alley, and apparently the property owner already added the gate there. So I don't know if you had a chance to go out and look at it, but it is already there. I think they're going to paint it black. I'm not sure if that got done. Okay. The applicant has, and that gate style is consistent with the style of gate, not next to them, but to it's the back of the alley. Yeah. Applicant has provided examples of furniture and heater devices. It's all in the material packet. Existing lighting attached to the building will remain in place, and then they would like to put hanging lights, the same style that was approved for Three Forks with the fully cut off bulbs. And the existing string lights will be removed.
They're already in.
Okay, they're already gone apparently. All right, so I think that is all I have. I'll go ahead and you can start your discussion. I'll pull up the materials.
There any questions? From
Oh, I do want to say one thing. There is when we calculated their parking demand for the, what did I say, 215 square feet, it came out to one parking space. So they will have to request an in lieu fee. The commission will be asked to consider a variance for this. Essentially the same findings we made for Three Forks, which is the the pedestrian-friendly atmosphere that's kind of being promoted with like the widened sidewalks on Commercial Street and that kind of thing. So,
But except that, sorry, I thought that with Three Forks, the issue is that they had their own private parking lot. I'm misunderstanding.
This is essentially the same. They had additional parking demand for their space because they were both reducing parking and they were inviting more demand, which puts more strain on parking requirements. In this case, they're not taking any parking space, but they are inviting a bit more demand, but only to the tune of one parking space.
Okay.
So they're underparked.
Okay.
Even more than they already were underparked.
And we're going to consider that variance request application today?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
That, you guys have to approve the variance in order for them to move forward, and city council would have to approve the in lieu fee, so that'll be the next step for him.
And I'm sorry, can you remind me, did we also do this same decision for the Brewbilt Beer Garden?
Yes.
I thought that it was a matter that, so it's a recommendation that we make to council.
It's not a recommendation. All your guys' purview is just to grant the variance for the parking reduction. City council has the purview to allow them to do the in lieu parking fee.
Okay, thanks.
So any questions from commissioners?
No questions.
I don't have anything, anything you'd like to add to what Amy said, or? Okay, well, public comment. Is there anyone present physically or online who has a comment about this application?
I have no attendees.
There being none, any comments or discussion from the commission?
Looks great.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to open again.
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations. Now, may I be nosy, are you new owners or are you the previous owners?
We're new owners.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I have no issues, looks great.
Thank you so much.
Did you actually look into these lights?
The hanging lights.
The lights that were.
The string lights?
We have them already.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, they were approved for Three Forks, so we just went ahead and
Yep.
just ordered them.
Just for my information, you like them, they seem good and robust and
Yeah,
fine.
they're real dim, but yeah, they're working out. They're gonna work out. So,
Excellent.
I did want to just let you know.
Anything real bright, so I know that's what you guys were.
Well, it's upward shining, that's a big concern, so the shades really help.
Yeah, with the existing lights and the other lights that we're approved for, that it should be sufficient.
Mhm.
Amy, you were saying?
The building department had some issues with they sent some conditions. They just wanted you to make sure that you understood that the gate required some like levers and things to be ADA accessible. So yeah,
Okay.
just so you were
We got
aware.
our final passed.
Oh, you did? You already worked with them?
Yeah,
Okay, great.
Yeah, we're past our final. Fire marshal passed us,
Okay.
so Chris had to leave. He's going down there with the environmental health is
Oh,
there right now. so
nice.
Hopefully we'll pass that. Be ready to rock and roll.
Well, it's a good thing that the gate looks great.
I know. I can't
Do we have to do a separate motion for the variance? Should we be discussing that?
You gotta do a bunch of motions. Hold
Yep.
on.
Okay.
Please walk us through it.
Let me give you the direction here. So determine that the project is categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to section 15301E of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines for projects characterized as existing facilities, including additions to existing structures, provided that the addition will not be an increase of more than 50% of the floor area of the structure before the addition, where public services are available and the area is not environmentally sensitive.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Cobden, Vice Chair Cobden, sorry.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Chair Nye.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. Okay, and then a motion to approve the proposed use permit subject to conditions of approval, making findings A through C of the staff report as provided in the staff report pursuant to section 17.88.20 of the Nevada City Municipal Code.
So moved.
Second.
Vice Chair Cobden.
Yes.
Chair Brown, Commissioner Brown.
You're really
Chair
going on
Nye.
a blast, aren't you?
Yes.
We're all commissioners. You
Yeah.
can just call us all
You
commissioners.
call us commissioners.
Trying to be formal and it's just not coming out very well. Okay, the planning commission approves the variance request for reduced parking, making findings A and B as provided in the staff report pursuant to section 17.88.030 of the city municipal code.
Moved.
Second.
Vice Chair Cobden.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Chair Nye.
Yes.
Okay, and then last one, and I just added this because I'm not sure that architectural review is really necessary, but they're adding the lights, they're attached to the building.
And the railing.
And the railing.
Oh, and the fence, okay, so the planning commission acting as architectural review committee approves the architectural review application as conditioned for the proposed outdoor enclosure located at 106 Union Alley, making findings A and B in the staff report.
So moved.
Second. I was giving you the option, deep in thought.
Is there a motion left for me to make?
Nope,
okay.
you have
Snooze, you
another
lose.
application, this will be the last one for this one. Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobb?
Yes.
Chair Nine?
Yes.
Motion passes. Yay!
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Can't wait to have you all in for dinner.
Me too.
Great, thank you so much.
At full price.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to make some money back.
Yes.
Is that all you need from me?
That's it.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Way to go.
I lost the agenda. I need to.
We are on page 85.
Yeah. Nope, this is actually, wait, right? No, I think, yeah, this is a new day, so. Well, Gary, I think you're next, Brian.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for waiting so long.
Well, it's very entertaining.
Is it?
We strive. This is 650 Gold Flat Road, a new day conditional use permit.
So, okay, so I'll do a brief introduction and then they may have some questions. This is an application to the commission for a use permit to operate a counseling service center within a 5,917 square foot space of 650 Gold Flat Road.
I need to disclose, although I think not recuse, that I have, I've had a business relationship with one of the tenants of that property.
I doubt that's recuse-worthy.
Earls?
I don't think it affects my, my impartiality.
Russ is gonna tell us, but I don't think so.
Russ is saying not a
Nope.
problem.
Okay.
Correct?
Right.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
The subject building was built in 1997, according to assessor's records. Total size of the building is 17,374 square feet, and it was for a business at that time called Lectromedia. That's what it was constructed for. The counseling service, A New Day, is relocating from their office space on New Mohawk to the space on Gold Flat. The use is not really neatly characterized. It's a counseling service center, so I reasoned it was somewhere between a health club and hospital or nursing care, somewhere in between those kinds of things. Those types of uses require a conditional use permit. The property is within the base zoning of light industrial designation. And so that is essentially why we're here, so that we can essentially give them that, categorize them under those use categories with a conditional use permit. They have plenty of parking, 57 off-street parking spaces, more than most of our businesses in this town. Yeah, I just reasoned that they're not expected to have an increase on their parking demand with this use. And that is all I have.
Okay, any questions from the commission?
No questions for me.
It is all interior improvements too, just so you guys know.
And the only question I have is you're aware of the other uses of the building and you're fine with
The sound mitigation?
Yeah.
Yeah, the walls have been built for that sound mitigation, and prior to us, Telestream was in there with their customer service center.
Right.
So, they obviously had similar concerns about sound, but I've been in there when they're operating their saws and I can't hear it, so.
That's great.
Yeah, and then we obviously, one of the things that we'll be concerned about is sound mitigation within our office, so even interior walls are gonna be sound mitigated for the purpose of counseling and confidentiality. So we'll have lots of sound mitigation.
Yeah.
All around there. So we're aware of that. We don't have any further concerns.
Yeah, it's just a question that seemed pertinent for that, like, will it actually work long-term with no friction between parties? So clearly not.
It may be surprising, but there's no sound. I mean, it's.
That's really impressive.
Well, we designed it for, disparate uses. Had a sound engineer, and it's a pretty bulletproof sound wall. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so.
A little proud of yourself.
No,
Appropriately.
it's just you have to do that when you have these.
Yeah, mixed uses. Yeah.
You've just got to do that just to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
It obviously opens up more options for tenants down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Any questions? So this would be the time for public comments. Brian, do you have a public comment? No, anybody? Our city
And I have-
engineer.
No attendees on Zoom.
Okay. Let's see, any discussion from the commission?
I mean, I just did have, I had a question, because it's saying that everything's indoors, but it does say that there's an outdoor lunch area. That's just like some casual, like, break area?
Right outside the break room, there's a
Yeah.
couple tables that I think staff would use to eat outside.
Gotcha. It was
It's
just
not
like,
really like a public space.
it's not like an additional development of a outdoor thing?
It's existing
It's
space.
just a thing.
And
Yeah.
that's in the original design. It was there for that purpose, for some outdoor lunch opportunities for employees.
Thanks.
So we don't need to weigh in on the dining furniture?
No.
It's not in an historical district.
So the outdoor dining ordinance does not apply
Well,
to
it's below
this?
grade, you can't see it from the street,
All right,
so I think
all
it's
right.
okay. Yeah.
Exempt then?
Yeah.
It's late in the meeting, sorry. Okay, well, no public comments. Is there a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
Wait,
What are we moving?
Are there motions?
We do have, it's a conditional use permit, discretionary permit, so we do have to make a motion for CEQA, which I'm recommending to be determined. This project is categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to section 15303 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, which exempts interior alterations essentially.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Ermshar.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden.
Yes.
Chair Nye.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. And then to approve the proposed use permit, subject to conditions of approval, making findings A through C pursuant to section 17.88.20 of the Nevada City Municipal Code. Oh, that's it.
So moved. I get one.
I'll second that one, too.
Commissioner Ermshar.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden.
Yes.
Chair Nye.
Yes.
Now we're done.
All right.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wish you the best with it.
And Tricia Johnson's the executive director of A New Day, and I'm glad that they're able to stay in Nevada City.
Yes, for sure.
Yes, too.
Absolutely. And literally like a stone's throw away.
It's a good location.
Not having to
Yeah.
move super far.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay.
Where's that two agenda button?
Now for
There it is.
Brian.
Brian, this is
Ah,
the fun part.
CIP.
well, next up is item 11, 2024 to 2028 Capital Improvement Program. Recommendation to City Council.
So this is a program we have to put together every year, and it's a funding planning tool for when we want to seek funding. It helps when we have grants that we want to apply for. If we've already outlined this as a priority for us to do, but it could be roads, road improvements, sidewalk improvements. That's what a lot of what you'll see in here. There are also some like pool, park improvements and those kinds of things. Improvements to the wastewater treatment. I think a lot of those have to do with just bringing them into compliance with some newer state laws. The Planning Commission's purview is to find the CIP consistent with general plan policies. Our general plan policies, I did cite some in there, but they're pretty vague. These, for the most part, these are all improvements that are done to maintain what our existing infrastructure already provides. So it's just improving them, not to invite capacity or to try to expand on their ability to serve.
Quick question in that vein. I have been hearing that there are plans for a skate park over in the tech area. Is this real? Like, I would think that that it would come by us.
It should, as like a site plan feature at the very least.
Okay.
It has not been proposed to me.
But have you heard about it?
No.
Oh, it's just preliminary discussions. But it's not on the list yet, I don't think.
It would be something the city would be doing? Or
Well, those, like Truckie's doing one.
this is
Those
specifically.
are private-public partnership projects, and they take a little while to come about and then
Okay.
get the funding. And so I've heard about it too, but it's not on the list yet.
Okay.
I'm double checking, but I don't think it made the list.
I didn't see
And
that.
there would.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way that it works is, we have our strategic plan, and then we have committees, like a Parks Committee, that would make recommendations like that for new projects. And then it would come to Planning Commission and also City Council. And then ultimately, when it's a real project, it would have site plans and go through CEQA and everything else. But
So I assumed. I was just surprised to hear it at the Rood Center, and I was taken
This
off.
is the first I'm hearing of it.
Here we are.
I've been looking through a lot of the city documents and things, and I did see the mention of a skate park as one of the, I'm not sure, maybe a potential goal for the
Yeah.
city within the strategic plan. So I don't know if that means anything. And then I'm not sure if you're allowed to say on record, but about the tech center, the applicant's idea.
Well, we
Might
just
be a
don't want to,
confusion.
it might come before them, so we don't really want them to discuss it. But,
Got it.
yeah, I've heard of maybe
Yeah.
a skate park in Pioneer Park is a potential improvement, but that's all I've heard. That's
yeah, it
all
would be
I've
the
heard.
Parks Committee, which we're not on that committee, so we don't know but that's where it's discussed, and they've got notes on all that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail everything.
Yeah.
I just wanted, I
No,
was
this-
wondering if I missed something.
So this year, we, because we have Sean helping and also Steve helping with finance. This year, the CIP plan is actually part of the budget. So the first year of this capital improvement plans is actually part of our budget this year. So it's more than just a wish list or future planning list of projects. The first year of the 5-year plan is actually projects in the works that we expect to do this year.
So that's everything that's fiscal year 23 to 24? And then 24 to 25, will we be like looking at that again next year?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just, all right.
This is a rolling thing, basically. Yeah.
But I kind of like the fact that it's a real plan, like we're actually doing year one.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And CEQA would be done separately. This is just a finding for conformance with the general plan at this time.
Now, if we do, two-part question. CEQA is going to cover the entire CIP?
No, I mean, each project would have to be reviewed for its own environmental impact.
Okay, and I guess that answers my second question, which was, how set in stone are the items on the CIP, and can other items be added within the time frame here before 2008?
2008?
This document will get updated every year.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so yeah, we'll get a look at the 24, 25s next year.
We'll be seeing it regularly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you say 2008?
Mm-hmm.
She meant something else.
I think she meant 28,
But this
2020.
is,
Oh, 28.
Okay, I'm like, what
Thank
did
you.
I'm like, I'm missing something. Okay.
Everyone else understood.
this is a draft. This is a draft, so projects can be added
Great.
between now and the council meeting where it's formally adopted.
And I looked at this before, but these are, it's multiples of 10, right? It's not, oh, I see.
I think it really is hundreds of thousands. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, are we supposed to add zeros because they seem,
No, these are actual dollars.
Those are actual dollars.
okay, okay.
Wait, which one are you looking at?
Well, just all of them, I thought that they needed to, I thought some zeros needed to be added, but okay.
You think those seem too cheap?
Well, yeah, I looked at it, you know, when the staff report came out, and I thought in a couple spots, but okay.
So, and what are you looking for from us today on this?
So, you guys have a responsibility to, consider public comment and the project and recommend to the city council that they adopt the 2024 through 2028 capital improvement program and transmit a report to city council providing comments and including a finding of consistency with the Nevada City General Plan.
Okay.
And the staff recommendation would be presumably that it is consistent with the general plan.
Yes, that's why I included the general plan policies.
Brian, you mentioned that you appreciate that this is like a working true budget, like we're actually living to it, we're initiating projects.
He's
Is there
got a happy
anything?
look on his face.
I know, is there
It's
anything
true.
you don't like about it?
No, it's good. I mean, like, for instance, the barn we're rebuilding, and you've already seen the barn replacement. It was destroyed in a winter storm, and we're getting insurance money to rebuild that. And then the bridge replacement project will be a 2-year project, and we got funding for that. So we'll be bidding that in the next month or so. And then Upper Broad, we will likely do that next spring, which is still in this fiscal year. So yeah, these are all projects that are ready to go. And we'll keep working towards the next list of projects for the 24-25 year, working through design and permitting.
And at this
environmental.
point, you're pretty pleased with the way it's been sequenced and prioritized in urgency?
Yeah.
And how do you arrive at costs before bidding? And just by looking at like standards for such things, comparable projects? Or, I mean, how do you come up with project totals before you receive bids?
We do engineers' estimates based on similar costs from similar projects. And then if it's much different, then we'll seek outside funding from that. A lot of times there's an agency that's providing a match of funding. We'll seek more funds for that project from that agency. So these numbers get adjusted after we get the bids.
Is the match funding like a grant, or is it a loan?
Grant, like the bridge project is 88% federal funds through the Highway Bridge Program. So, and then the Sugarloaf Trail project is State Parks funded trail project.
It varies by funding sources.
Yeah, yeah.
I see something I noticed something I would like to see added. What would be the appropriate process to have that discussion? Amy looks like she wants to die right now.
I'm going to ask Russ, can the planning commission add something to the CIP?
They are making a recommendation, so that would be
Okay.
part of your
I would like to bring up the subject of bike lanes, which I know that there's not a lot of space for them in downtown, historic town, whatever, but there is certainly a a desire and a need, I think, in other places. Like I know I've brought this up with respect to the Grove development in back behind the tech center. And I would just like to advocate for those of us who enjoy riding bikes and want to ride bikes around town safely, that we try to, someone help me out here.
Like advocate.
Yeah. Prioritize, inclusion of bike lanes consistently in our community where it's possible. And I also understand, I do want to add that I understand that like a 1 mile of bike lanes can be $1 million if you do it the best way you can do it. But there are other ways that we can start integrating them into our regular traffic experience.
Do we have any corridors identified as?
I think
For biking corridors.
there might be in the Nevada County Transportation Master Plan, which came out in 2019. They
Yeah.
have an entire.
Yeah, there is. I wrote the Nevada County Active Transportation Plan, so.
You wrote that in
Yeah,
2019?
And I worked with Brian
Amazing.
and others in the county. So do you want to talk about that, Brian?
Yeah, well, we work with Nevada County Transportation Commission on regional projects like that, because it's not just the city. We want that involvement of the whole region. And so one of the projects, the Sacramento Street project, which is listed for 25-26, would be a candidate for potential bike lanes. And there's all different types of bike lanes, but we want to make sure they're safe enough width for more users to use them.
Yeah.
And Brian, obviously as we go through, the reconstruction of like Zion Street and stuff further down the line, as part of our overall street improvements, there's opportunities to incorporate it at that time too. See, it's not this one-time cost, it's done as part of that project, and it becomes a very small add-on if it's done like that.
Yeah, there's streets that are wide enough, like Zion used to be a highway, so it's wider. And Sacramento, Upper Sacramento is wide enough, and like in front of the bike shop and going up to Zion. And then you get into choke points or some challenging areas, and that's where we really have to come up with some good solutions. But we should definitely implement the plan that we have from NCTC as we do the design on these projects. And there is one on the list that would align itself with those plans, the Sacramento Street Lower Zion project.
I want them everywhere, Brian.
Okay, I hear you.
Before there's choke points, the painting on the actual lane that sort of identifies that as a bike corridor, so that drivers over time get familiar with that being the route the cyclists are going to take.
Yeah, and
Sort
signage.
of create a sense of safety, but it takes some time.
We could have a whole long, so sharrows are a thing too on bike routes, and we could have a lot of discussion about the use of sharrows, and there's trade-offs with those
There's
too.
definitely trade-offs.
So
There's also funding for those sorts of.
Yeah, there's grant funding for those. Like when we look at these future years, a lot of those projects don't have funding yet, but that's where we start looking for funding now, because it takes time to get it all lined up.
Well, and I would also like to add, and maybe this is treacherous water, Russ, help me out here, because my job is grant coordination at the county level, and what I'm seeing thematically is a lot of, particularly state grants, prioritizing municipalities that have sustainable transportation, such as bike lanes, and support of vehicle alternatives in their CIPs.
Rod, do you?
Yeah, there's a whole ongoing strategy essentially to
Yes.
grant applications to the active transportation program.
Yes.
And the size of applications you want to get in and which bucket you go for and all those
Yeah.
sorts of things too. So
So since I know nothing about it, the question is, are bike lanes, because a study's been done, or
So what was done was it's a high-level plan. It's just really the first step in identifying possibilities for out. It doesn't get in, Brian's talking about the next step, essentially being identifying funding and starting to get into the detailed design. What was done so far is not the detailed design, and that has to be done as part of the process.
So is there an apparatus or whatever in place that would grab those opportunities when improvement projects occur, say on Sacramento Street? Like, would that automatically happen, or does an update to the CIP need to direct that to happen? I mean, would it happen?
Well, fortunately, we went from like a 3-page CIP to a 60-page CIP. So fortunately, there's a page for each project where things like this can be written in to the project description. So for Sacramento Zion, rather than just relying on staff to try to do what you'd like to see, we can actually write it into the CIP on these sheets that are, because there's one sheet per project. So the one that I'm talking about for Sacramento Zion, I can find it, but that's where we could write in there that our goal would be to make
got it up on
that
the-
bicycle friendly.
Would it not be a simpler attack to just make a separate page that says, include bike lane infrastructure where possible, instead of going through each single project and saying we can add 50 feet of bike lane here, and then a mile
Yeah.
later we can add another 50 feet?
Yeah, under that scenario, we'd want to have it be budgeted so that it's.
So identify each
Within that
proposed project.
Eventually, you have to get to that step.
To
I know,
include
but
the
like,
prioritization of.
But I think it helps you if you start putting it down like that, it's going to get you
Right.
to that goal.
I
even
just
better.
assume that before you start putting it down that way, it might be more sensible just to have a general, we are prioritizing bike lanes where we can find space for them.
That's
And then-
that's a
and
good
then you go to
recommendation,
specifics.
and we just would need to get council's approval to spend $50,000 this year or whatever it is towards
Or 10
that
feet of
goal.
bike lane.
And, yeah,
Hey, don't be a doomsdayer.
I mean, just a realist.
but this.
I'm advocating for them.
But this bigger project I'm mentioning is $700,000. The one that's already on the list, and I didn't put bike lanes in the description, but it can be easily added
Great.
to that one.
And that's the
Brian's
biggest
talking about
opportunity.
he knows how where the rubber meets the road and how to get the rubber on the right spot of the road or something like that.
Yeah.
Pardon the bad metaphor, but yeah, it sounds like that's the way to do it.
Great.
It's a good comment.
Thank you.
So the
It seems
outcome
like
is that the recommendation is to call out in any upcoming projects to include planning or achievement towards safe bike lanes.
Identifying opportunities in each project for a bike lane.
For including
Right.
the infrastructure.
Yeah.
I would say to implement
Yeah.
the active
Actually do
transportation
it.
plan.
Yeah,
Okay.
Was
there you
Which
go.
is
approved
pet
by
and
the
bike.
council, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, good call out. I think, are we unanimous on this?
I think so. I think, speaking more generally, like, again, kudos to Amy for bringing this up. How does this fit into the strategic planning process and all of those different committees that are going on? Because there are plenty of plans like this that sit around on shelves for decades, right? And, getting it, action on, eventually the council needs to do something with it, and we need to advocate to
Well,
them, guess, to do it.
I think that the reason
Well,
is
that's
because
what
it needs
that's what we'd
it
be
needs a
doing.
very
Right.
loud, pushy champion.
Yeah.
And
To
it
speak
needs
up
to
for
be
it.
called out in all these independent projects.
Yeah.
Because I think what my sense is what can happen is people realize a road needs to be fixed or a sidewalk needs to be addressed, but on its own, it's not connected to a bike path on either side, the fix, so then it just gets fixed as it is without kind of the forethought of thinking about the long-term plan.
And also we're having there's an ongoing project going on now, looking at parking, and these things are related.
Yeah.
So.
Very much so. I would like to add, like, when thinking about bike lanes and transportation, they don't necessarily have to be in the road. We also have a variety of park options where a bike path could go through potentially. So this is, this is a subject with many roofs.
Right. So maybe a recommendation to include here, it would take some staff effort actually to identify spots where that could occur. So it would be direction from the commission to essentially add a line in the projects that you see.
Yeah, just thought of another one that's on the list. There's the Clark Street footbridge project, which we didn't, it's on the list for planning and engineering, but it could be in Caltrans right away, you know.
Is that the one that's in my backyard?
Yeah, but
Right.
it doesn't need to be
That's what I was
there.
thinking.
It can be in the
It could be just next
Caltrans
to
right
it.
away.
I don't think people want to ride their bike in there, though, but I could be wrong. It's
Yeah,
a bit of a steep haul.
but,
I just don't see why you need another bridge between two bridges.
but it's,
The bridge,
the active
get me started.
transportation plan that Rod is mentioning has bikes, pedestrian, and other forms of transportation. You know, it looks at everything, trails. So anyway, that's not, this is kind of the first time we've had a bigger document where we can add more narrative. So I think we could certainly add narrative to each one of these projects that ties itself to those pedestrian improvements and bike improvements.
So is that enough action on our part?
I'm going to ask you to actually make a motion, and I'll read it with something I added to do for the bike lane comment. So recommend to the City Council the adoption of the 2024 to 2028 Capital Improvement Program, and transmit a report to the City Council providing comments and including a finding of consistency with the Nevada City General Plan, and recommend adding bike lane improvements throughout the city, either as its own project or incorporated within projects already identified to help implement the active transportation plan.
I would say instead of either or, I'd say both, transportation and as its own project. Does that?
I guess that's what I meant.
And/or?
Yeah, because what I would hate to see is, go ahead, Russ.
Well, I was going to suggest that you use both terms, bike lanes and bike paths.
Yeah.
Bike,
There you go.
bicycle and pedestrian
And bike
infrastructure, right, is the generic. But it's not just bike lanes and bike paths, it includes bike routes.
So I think just get rid of either. So, and recommend adding bike lanes and bike path improvements throughout the city as its own project and incorporated within projects already identified to help implement the active transportation plan.
I guess I would expand it, not just to limit it to, but it's a little technical now, but bike lanes and bike paths is narrow. And I think we want to include other
Walking.
walkings, yeah, so I would say, you know,
Pedestrian.
walking and
Bike and
infrastructure
pedestrian.
for walking and biking.
I could think of a few more places that could use a sidewalk.
Sidewalks and crossing improvements and.
I'm not thinking the same thing you're thinking, that's for sure.
Rob's not taking my bait.
Nope.
Okay, let me try it one more time here. So, okay. Recommend adding bike and pedestrian improvements throughout the city as its own project and incorporating it within projects already identified to help implement the active transportation plan.
Is that clear, like, the projects that aren't just, I mean, identified, but they're actually like plan, like they're gonna happen. Is that clear? Is that
That's
pretty
what you
clear?
mean by
They're identified in
identified.
the CIP, so the ones that are planned.
Like they're underway though, really. So we're even saying like, can you make it a part of these things that are,
Yeah, this is still a draft.
Yeah.
So I have to add exhibits to each of these
Okay.
already, and I can add more narrative
Perfect.
based on your direction.
great.
An idea on an addition, the Nevada County Active Transportation Plan, identifying that, and then also not limiting it to just that, but including or other city-defined or city
I mean, that's great.
projects that could be, maybe they're not on the plan, but they could be really great.
Including, I might also throw out the county recreation and resilience master plan,
Which is ongoing, yeah.
which is ongoing. That would be a great link in to this as well.
And
Funders love collaboration.
if we're gonna do it as well, not that I think there's anything specific in there in this year, there's the Caltrans District 3 Active Transportation Plan as well, which, although I don't think there's anything.
Do you want me to add that as all part of your recommendation to just tie it to all those things?
Well, I think
Slap council
part
around
of
a little
what
bit.
we're recognizing is that there's ideation and energy and desire behind things, but then we look at things through a small lens and we forget to take in these other sources.
With the suggestion to coordinate
Yeah.
with
Among the
these other,
various
with these
plans,
other
yeah.
plans.
Well put.
Does that make it onerous, Brian?
Does it make it onerous for you?
No, I mean, I think the master plans are out there and they just need to be,
Looked at,
brought
reviewed,
together.
referenced.
Yeah, except for the Recreation and Resiliency Master Plan, it's not done yet, though.
No, but if you would like to participate are you already in the meetings?
No.
Are you part of, if that's something that you feel would be useful and worth your time, there's certainly room.
What's it called again? Resiliency?
Recreation and Resiliency Master Plan, the county
Okay.
added 2 new positions last year, one in economic development and the other in recreation and resilience. And Erica Seward, who used to be a co-chair, I believe, of Bear Yuba Land Trust, returned from she left and then she came back for this position, and she is organizing a very huge endeavor to create a recreation resilience master plan with the understanding that recreation is a huge economic force and also links into all kinds of other things like fire defensibility, vegetation management, economic vitality, et cetera. So it's great.
Which could be a pipeline to resources too,
And,
right?
where it's very relevant to Nevada City, in particular, I think bikes have a lot to do with it. People come from all over to ride the Hoot and the Talon Show and other trails that I'm sure you're familiar with. But also there is a very healthy discussion about connecting Truckee and Pines to Mines all the way down here. So.
Yeah, so Sean would decide if that would be Parks and Rec or engineering or whatever, but we should definitely participate.
I think, yeah, as long as
Represent the
like
city.
everyone is communicating, I think that's the most important thing.
The Mariposa, so Nevada County hired the same consultant, nothing to do with, that Mariposa County did, and if you look at their plan that was created for that, it has trails in there, quite a bit. It's an interesting combination of trails planning and other resilience things and wildfire, prevention and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, I think it's very, I consider it to be very forward-thinking, and what I love about it is that it considers the entire region and community, and it doesn't compartmentalize. It recognizes us as a single, as a complex organism. So.
Is it getting onerous now?
No, I love it. It's fun. I mean,
Who would think that CIP discussion would lead to such a vibrant discussion?
I do want to add that I think the improvements to this,
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
very consistent with, the good documents that I've seen in other organizations. And I'm
Yeah,
glad to
this
see
is
that
great.
Nevada
Yeah, it's
State
coming around.
is
It's a
coming
real-
around,
Yeah,
yeah.
That's
it's
I
in so many ways.
Yeah.
This is really great.
All right, thank you.
Oh, wait, I would like a pony.
I think we still need,
Yeah, you still need to make a motion.
we still have to vote, yeah.
Need to make a motion.
Well, it's on, yeah, do you want me to
We
read that all again?
Yes.
Okay. And then I hope, I've got like everything lined out and stuff now, so hopefully I get it all in order. To consider public comment and the project and recommend to the city council that they adopt the 2024 to 2028 capital improvement program and transmit a report to council providing comments and including a finding of consistency with the Nevada City General Plan and recommending adding bike and pedestrian improvements throughout the city as its own project and incorporated within projects already identified, and to coordinate with the Nevada County Active Transportation Plan, the District 3 Active Transportation, the Caltrans District 3 Active Transportation Plan, and the Nevada County Resiliency Master Plan.
Recreation and resiliency,
sorry, I had that.
RRM.
I had that in there, I just,
As it is developed, or something like that.
oh, as it's developed, okay, yeah.
Chair Nye?
Yes.
Under the circumstances, you're being asked to transmit a report to the city council providing comments. Typically, that doesn't happen, but since this is a bit of a weighty topic and there's been quite a bit of discussion, you might want to actually prepare a report rather than trying to cram all of your ideas into one motion. Prepare a report, you would sign it, and then it would go in the staff report for the city council when they get their packet to go along with this.
Okay, and be present for the meeting for questions if necessary. Is that?
Yeah, if you'd like to, but that's always, you can always do that, but just.
There might be a commissioner or two who would be better qualified to write the report than I.
Right.
Do you have a suggestion as to how that commissioner would be selected?
Yeah, just pick.
Okay.
Point a finger. and
Volunteer
say,
them.
You just volunteered, but it doesn't have to be extensive. They'll get the point, but it's getting a little wordy to just try to
I
cram into a motion
think,
with.
Russ, I think Amy did a great job. So
If
are
you're
you,
happy with it? There you go.
but are you recommending something like give us a half a page,
Yeah.
some links? That's
Just
a memo?
Trying to cram it all into one sentence. Your report consists like a couple of paragraphs that we'd like you to.
I'd be happy to do that. And I'll send it to Rod for copying.
That sounds like a good plan, kind of a committee, as it were.
But, so in the meanwhile, though, Russ, as far as what Amy has just written, should we also include that? Or?
No, that's part of your motion to transmit report to the city council and finding you're recommending approval of this capital improvement program. You're making a finding that it's consistent with the Nevada City General Plan, and you are going to transmit a report with your comments, primarily focused on bike routes, lanes, paths, and bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure.
So the intent of your suggestion is to maybe make it into paragraphs that are more digestible.
Yeah. What he's saying is part of the motion in the standard motion, before we added anything, it includes that you can transmit a report. So this would just be transmit a report based on the discussion.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So Rod and Amy are appointed.
Okay.
And because what we're asked to do is also include public comment, is there anyone, do we have any attendees?
Did we not already do that? I had.
No, not on this.
Oh. No attendees.
Okay, so no public comment.
I'm going to read it one more time without the additions. So consider public comment and the project and recommend to the city council that they adopt the 2024-2028 capital improvement program and transmit a report that will be done by Commissioner Cobden and Commissioner Brown to the city council, providing comments and including a finding of consistency with the Nevada City General Plan.
So moved. Thank you, Amy.
I'll second it.
And thank you, Russ.
Seems appropriate. Yes, thank you.
Oh, and Commissioner Armstrong.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden.
Yes.
Chair Knight.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay. No, one more thing, sorry. Keep forgetting I have a mouse here, make this easier.
Who are these guys who start drinking so early?
Next word.
Like at 3 in the afternoon, yeah. Do they do?
Do you want to introduce it? or-
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I was listening to background noise. I thought you were going to begin speaking.
Sorry.
Stand by. The housing, we're next considering item 11, which is the housing element. Sorry, item 12, which the housing element continued from December 2022.
So, yes, in March 2022, and in 2023, I presented an annual progress report to the Planning Commission. That helps facilitate our housing plan, including a table that has housing tasks. I brought this forward to, which we're supposed to implement. I think the timeline is by 2020. We were supposed to have implemented some of these things, but COVID hit and there's a lot of things that delayed it. So we're a little behind schedule. I brought this to you guys in December of 2022 with ordinance text as recommended in staff in order to comply with state law and what we already committed to doing with the 2019 to 2027 housing element. You guys did give me some comments, and then I also had some additional comments from Chair Nye after the fact, mostly having to do with the farm worker housing information. So the way I organized the ordinance that's before you is I have it, all the text that's new to the ordinance is underlined. The black text, underlined black text was stuff that I had in there before that, does the minimum to comply with state law. And then the blue text reflects some of the comments that I got from the commission and from, both at the public meeting and outside. So.
One thing, and maybe this is not relevant to this one, but with respect to trees, is this the right place to include, what is it, discretionary ability to remove invasive species of tree, like tree of heaven?
So that's so what this is we are required to, so that is a discussion we'll have. Yeah, that's not housing element. These are to implement the housing element. What this is in the R3, we have 3 acres designated for R3.
Yeah.
The state says we have to allow the tree removal to happen without discretion.
Okay, thank you.
And the comment that I had that I shared with Amy prior was regarding the employee housing parking requirement. There's an addition on page 169, adding employee housing, this is section 10, section 1780.030.
Whoa, section.
Yeah, say the section again because
section 10,
I don't think.
okay.
Section
There we
10, oh wait, it says section 10 and then it says section 17 section 10 of the document,
Gotcha.
section 17.80.030 of the code is amended as follows, and this has to do with amounts of parking required. And so we have this new category called employee housing, and it's saying that 2 spaces are required for small employee for small employee housing unit, 1 space for every 3 authorized beds for large employee housing units. I'm concerned about adding more parking than necessary, and I realize that there's a lot of things that need to be done to our parking guidance and such, but I didn't necessarily want to add 2 spaces per small unit at this point.
And I want to say, I'm not sure we are required to do the parking. I think
think
that
not.
I think that I pulled that from another jurisdiction.
Yeah. And I would say in general, this parking requirements are not
Yeah, I don't
statewide.
think the state required us to add parking. It was just something that I saw.
Generally
on
require
there.
people to remove parking, or not require parking. Say you can't
Well,
make
yeah,
it
that's true for ADUs and that. so,
for
yeah,
ADUs and
yes.
such, so.
Right, and SB 9
Yeah.
also has no
Right, yeah.
parking provisions.
Near
In
transit.
certain
and all that kind of
circumstances,
stuff.
yeah.
Is there a, kind of a sidebar, is there like a numeric delineation between large employee housing and small employee housing?
I believe there is, yeah, up above, so, sorry, you guys can't see
It's
my
on
screen.
Oh, I see,
It's on
it's
page-
just above, yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize.
174.
My eyes just didn't go there.
It's a lot of words, a lot of
Yeah.
letters.
And was that answered?
So-
Ron's concern?
So, what I'd like to do is modify this employee housing requirement.
The parking requirement?
The employee, yeah, thank you. The employee housing parking requirement, to change it to be 2 or fewer spaces for small employee housing unit, 1 or fewer spaces, for every 3 authorized beds.
Wait, I'm sorry, so it's 2 or fewer for small?
Yeah,
Okay.
and 1 or fewer, which is 1 or, it can be fractional, right? So 1 or fewer spaces per bed.
And then would you, elaborate on the why behind that?
Yeah.
That's my question, too.
Yeah, so in general, the trend has been in the past to require too much parking
Where though? Here or in the world?
in the world.
In the world.
Okay, gotcha.
In the United
Yeah,
States,
okay.
and particularly in California.
Then I have a middle question, and so this standard comes from that?
There's a-
So this section that you'd like to amend comes from the desire to oversupply parking?
Well, Amy, you want to give the background there?
So I don't believe the state, I will have to double check and make sure this was not the state, but I'm pretty sure I recall just looking at what other jurisdictions did to fulfill this, and several of them added a parking requirement because they're adding housing. And so I put that in there because I thought you guys might want to have parking requirements that are sort of similar to what we require for a single family. But I think in general, that is true, and there's sort of a growing body of people that feel like we're overparked.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's a problem in Nevada City, though. And so
Well-
this is where I might feel like
I'd
we're
like to just add a
not.
little more to
Yeah,
it, though,
yeah,
too.
yeah.
I mean, when you require parking, you're adding cost, and you're also, making it harder for people to build housing and such. So, especially in a place like this, we're talking about housing for employees, for people who, presumably have less driving, who are working in a town like this.
I don't know. Like when I think about people who work here, they wish they had parking, and they're having to pay meters and move their car every 3 hours, and
But this is residential.
This is
parking.
residential parking.
So
This is
the
residential
idea, the ideal here being that whatever residential housing means that who lives there works in town and can walk to their job or bike to their job.
Correct.
This is employee parking, though, right?
It's
Worker
for
housing.
employee housing. It's
Right.
parking for employee housing, yeah.
I think
Okay.
what they're referencing is using the site where the employee housing is and identifying space on the site for the employee housing. So that's why it sort of diminishes the availability of usable land to build, to construct something that somebody could live in.
I'm still feeling like 2 spaces for up to 6 people and 1 for every 3 sounds reasonable. But I'm.
Yeah.
It does sound reasonable, so
there's.
Rod needs to make a convincing argument why it isn't.
Yeah, there could be a whole large discussion. There's been very large books written, about parking and, how it's pardon?
They sound riveting.
Riveting.
God bless you, Rod.
Essentially, if you look at the built form that we have if we required the parking that's in our code for the businesses and the housing that we have, we could not build Nevada City today.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's a trade-off. We can have more parking, but we lose, you know, what's consistent. And this is a very tiny piece of what is a very big problem, and
Right.
I realize that.
So then on that flip side, and not being a parking expert, my rebuttal is, why would we continue to do that then? Like, if this is a problem, the way that we are without parking, why would we continue to build that way?
No, it's a problem that we have.
For not having worker housing.
Maybe we're saying different ideas of the problem. I'm saying the problem is that we require too much parking, which deters further construction, and that we are, you know, essentially.
What was the part about we couldn't build Nevada City as it is today?
Imagine Nevada City, like, but with, what, 3 times as much parking instead of the buildings
Yes.
that we have. So we would have an extremely limited number of, it would look like Brunswick.
As much parking as is, if there were as much parking as is required, there would be no city.
So if you look
Partially,
at the,
for
if you look at like the projects we've been doing recently, we've been saying you don't have to meet the requirement, right? We're saying, even today, we're talking about, you know, the fact that if you go straight by the quote-unquote book, it says per X thousand square feet of whatever business you need this many spaces. And every time we've talked about that in here, we're typically saying you don't need to do that. You don't need to meet that.
I hear you, and I hear my neighbors. And trying to park on street is very difficult for people who live in town. It's a challenge, for sure, especially, you know, with the amount of tourism and street fairs and things that we attract and we love. I feel like I
guess my point is, though, if you build this, we're going to get more things, you know, like, you know, the new housing that we have, you know, down at the end of Zion, which is nothing like the rest of the city, right?
No, I'm not getting the connection. So an employee, maybe I need to understand employee housing, 2 spaces. I guess I don't even understand truly what is an employee housing and where would it go?
Rod,
Where
are
is
you
it
saying-
zoned to be approved?
If there's not parking on the site, then it's gonna spill out on the street.
Right.
So what sorts of zones would allow employee housing? Or where might that land?
Rod, are you saying that
Cashman's
Cashman's
Field.
Field, that if we maintain the parking limits expressed here, that we are going to be forced to have
We're going to
every
be
new
more-
development looking like
We're going to be
Cashman's
more
Field?
towards the Cash and Field side
Right.
style than, you know, like the smaller, denser development that we have.
Yeah, do you think though that's like, I wonder if, I agree with you because for a lot of reasons, but I don't think it's just the parking. I see how the parking forces it because you have to have it underneath the structure in order to make the space line out, but I think it's also a matter of all kinds of other
There's
costs.
There's lots of things. This is one contributor of many.
Also
And-
just a weird
and
architectural moment we're having.
I'd also note too that many, I've essentially proposed switching this to allowing the developer to determine the appropriate thing. And, you know, it's, as opposed to saying that you must do all of this, you know, many cities now are moving to saying that, you know, let the builder determine what the needs are, you know, as opposed to deterring the construction of new housing.
And then it almost, my reaction to that almost feels like a debate between quality of life for a resident and what's profitable.
I think that the developer is always
You know?
going to say less parking if
Yeah,
it means
because
I
it
get to
costs
build
less
it.
money. I can cram in more
But you,
things to sell.
perhaps you know better. I also think that it sounds like, from what I've learned, Cashman's Field is a great example, even with those parking spaces, or whatever, like, what, each unit cost around $500,000. So I think that even if you took away the parking restriction, you'd still be looking, my understanding is that developers can't pencil out any which way here.
And I'm not saying this is the only factor, believe me.
Right. And I also see where you're going with this, and I appreciate that as well. Maybe what the best thing to do is, instead of requiring it, have it on a case-by-case basis, and we all have more of a headache, but then at least Amy's also looking like.
Well,
I'm
I don't
just
think it would
making
come
it-
to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because this is,
They
Which
would become
does-
allowed uses, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it does, so there's a related point to this. If you go, that was item number 10, employee housing, then there's 11 other uses, and then there's point 12 underneath that. Nothing in this section shall prohibit the planning commission or city council from requiring more parking.
Oh, you're talking about in
I'm looking at
the code.
the code, right?
Mhm. The-
Scroll, if you.
Okay, I'm like,
It's
I don't
in
see
there.
that.
Here?
Yeah, it's in there.
Oh, so what you're saying, Rod, is we can do away with the parking spaces above, but then number 12 allows us to step in and say you need more parking. Is that-
What I was going to get at was I wanted to change two things. One, not require the spaces above, but also change 12 to allow less parking as well as more parking.
Allow flexibility.
Allow flexibility,
Are
exactly.
you talking about 12 in our municipal code?
I'm looking at.
G12?
In our
Section, he's
Yeah,
looking at
G12,
section.
the top of page 169.
Oh,
In my packet, Rod, it's 174.
Yeah, in my packet, it's 175 or 4.
Me too.
Yeah.
Section 10 starts on 174.
Why does
and
mine say 169?
You probably have, maybe you have the original one. I think it's
Oh, okay.
re-updated, yeah.
oh,
I
here,
didn't
okay.
download the update.
There you are.
Okay.
So what would you like to do to 12 in conjunction? G12?
Oh, okay, so that is already in, so 12
already
is
in the
already
code.
in our municipal code.
Which implies that we're only allowed to increase the amount of parking as opposed to decrease the amount of parking.
And I will only note that since this wouldn't come to you, you wouldn't have the opportunity to increase the parking. if
Can
that
we,
was-
can we,
But it does say the planning commission there.
Yes, but that's not, that wouldn't be an administrative review, so it
And-
would be,
the housing
I
element,
mean, by project.
we couldn't come to the planning commission for these projects if they are proposed, because they're allowed by right.
So then what is the language, item 12 then? What does that even mean?
yeah, so the whole purpose
So
of,
I think Amy's point is just that it's not relevant to the other changes that are in here. It's relevant to other projects, but not to this
Yes.
employee housing, because
You
these will
guys
be a
can-
by right.
Yes, you can, you can you can use that to add parking if you felt it was necessary.
So I
for
just
other
want
projects.
to, I want to clarify for Wendy, I think, I'll play middleman here.
Sure.
Without, like, we're talking about like infill employee housing and then parking, the parking requirements that are laid on that. So, and so if Rod's point is that if restrictions on or requirements for parking aren't made easier for builders, it will discourage infill employee housing and then necessitate the building of big projects like Cash and Field.
Yeah.
That was the point you were making,
There's-
that this is infill stuff, maybe in residential neighborhoods. But if, with the parking requirement, people just may be not inclined to do it.
There's that, and also if there's infill, I guess there could be some stuff on the periphery of town in an undeveloped parcel or something like that.
The large employee housing can go on ag forest, which we only have, I think, about 2. One being the old airport, which the city owns, and then the other one is like in town. So that one's, it's already developed. I doubt that there'll be much opportunity there.
Odds are this will
wild
come
to
up. Be an issue.
employee infill in one of the richest neighborhoods in Nevada County.
What did you say?
I'm just thinking about like employee housing on the top of airport, like one of the most desirable locations.
I mean,
What
this-
qualifies something as employee housing?
So it's a state designation, so they do
Okay.
have to be defined.
Instead of saying a certain income level, we're calling it employee,
It's a state term.
Yeah.
And that's
so
the
it's-
language, that resulted from a conversation we had, like define.
We
Work-
added the
worker.
language that refers to the state code.
Right,
Yeah, so
right.
that's that language we added, but it's a long definition, and I can read it
Yeah,
here.
it's in here on
Section
section 9, yeah.
Yeah, section 9, yeah.
I could add to that, as far as within the county, the employee housing, so you're allowed to have a certain number of buildings on your property that can be used for people to live in. So employee housing is an option for an employer to build structures specifically for employees to live in. So as a.
But they have to be employed by that person, like per state code.
They do.
It says with or without pay, though, so that's, or with or without rent, is that what it said?
With or without
Right.
rent.
Without rent.
yeah.
And then it's further defined in the California
Whether or
Safety
not
Code.
rent's involved, yeah.
Yeah.
So that ensures that somebody isn't just calling a bunkhouse employee housing.
It sounds very angled at weed farms.
And I guess a bigger, just final statement, well, probably not the final statement. But the bigger picture here is that, right, I mean, there's a trade-off to having a place like Nevada City, which is quaint and compact and great to walk around. And part of that trade-off is that there's less parking and things are closer together.
Well, so given everything that you know, Rod, what would your recommendation be? How could we address this in a manner where the planning commission and the council are not going to have teeth?
So,
Not gonna have teeth?
Teeth, like we can't,
This won't come to the commission or council. If someone proposes employee housing in the zones where they're allowed.
Which
then
are
it
again,
won't-
which zones?
So large family housing is,
Zone 3.
is ag forest, and single family is wherever single family is allowed.
So employee housing is permitted in single family, is that what you're saying?
Small employee
Employer.
housing is allowed in single family, yeah.
Okay,
So it's the impact you're concerned about,
yes,
potentially.
right,
like if your neighbor builds an ADU for,
for 6 people.
Yeah.
And has no parking. So they're all parking in the neighborhood.
so my recommendation was to make those number of spaces, whatever it was.
One less space.
Two
Or
or
to make
fewer for
it 2 or
small
fewer, to
and
just allow
one or fewer
flexibility.
per bed
And
for the
two,
large employee.
yeah, essentially,
okay, so then that way your neighbor would at least have to provide 2 spaces.
no,
So it's-
no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they could provide
None.
Up to 2.
He's
up to
saying-
2.
Oh.
Right, exactly.
That's not a workable standard.
There are a number of other jurisdictions that are switching their parking minimums to maximums now. So, are you saying specifically for this purpose, that's not an option?
Right, that's not an objective standard, and it's not, you say up to 2. Well, if they come in with 0,
Okay, then
that's it.
Okay.
0.
Then
Yeah.
I guess you could just remove the requirement entirely.
Why not say 1 to 2?
You could say 1 or 2
Then
as
at
well.
least 1 or 2.
Yeah. And I guess I'm not clear though, Russ, I mean, 0, 1, or 2, those are numbers that seem to be pretty objective. I mean, it's between 0 and 2.
Well, yeah, so how you'll never, if they propose 0, then you have to approve it. If they propose 1, you have to approve it.
And
If they propose 2, you have to approve it.
And I'm okay with that.
I would like some more discretion on it. Is there any way, there's no way to get discretion on it? It's really up to the developer.
That is why the state is requiring us to update
Define
our
it.
codes. so that we
These
can
are
have-
objective standards.
Sorry,
Yeah.
we should be
Has to be
clear
listed
that
here.
requiring us to update the code, but this
The
is.
parking standard is not a requirement, you're right,
Right,
yes.
exactly.
We
This is
can,
not a
we
state
can go
requirement.
with 0, that's not something the state is requiring us to do. We have to update the code to comply with allowing the employee housing. It was silent on parking, it's just what a number of other jurisdictions did.
Okay. So we have to require employee housing. Employees probably are gonna want parking. In a way, I guess if you had 0 parking spaces, it might limit who is able to live in the space. And you can assume that whoever's there isn't gonna have a car, but I think that's pretty unrealistic around here. I mean, I would say a minimum of 1 space. And I wonder if a developer would sacrifice their own financial interest to give more parking spaces. I just don't see that happening.
So in general, developers will do what attracts people, and if they think
But,
they need
but
spaces
yes,
to
yes,
attract people.
when they stand to make money, but I think that in any building project in downtown Nevada City or within Nevada city limits, that unless they are enormous, like some of the ones that are building in Nevada County because they can make it pencil out, it's still not gonna be profitable for them.
So I think in general, the odds of this happening
Yeah,
are a relatively
yeah.
small period.
Well, then let's just leave it as it is.
Well, I feel like that just makes it even smaller, right? I would like to see employee housing.
I would settle for one parking space per small and 2 per large.
Well, increase the number of beds. In other words, one space for every, it says one space for every 3 right now, then you go to one space for every 5 or 6 or something.
Okay, sure.
So
And I would make it read a minimum of, sorry, Rod.
a minimum of one, and
Which is essentially what it is.
one space per 6 beds.
I mean, I don't know how we navigate this, because I would still say 2 for a small, and I would still say, as it reads, for the 36 beds.
I'm with
we
Rod
really-
on this one.
yeah.
I think we're limiting the kinds of structures that could be built.
You mean by having minimum parking requirements?
Yes.
Yeah, and there's really no math behind this, really. It's all been based on a,
Well, if all
Feel
of our
of the parking
agricultural lots are going to be on the periphery of town, we don't have bike lanes. So most people are going to need a vehicle.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, then, we are allowing developers to impede the quality of life of the residents, that they don't have a place to park their car.
I guess I feel like we're impeding the quality of life by requiring more parking and sending people to drive.
I hear
so,
you. I feel like,
And then somewhere in the, sorry.
no, it's a hardship if you've ever lived somewhere like San Francisco or places where you cannot park and you're getting towed and you're getting tickets. And if it's an employee, they're probably often, if it's an employee that's, at the service level, if that's what we're talking about, making lesser wages, a lot of times those people are working and living paycheck to paycheck as is, and then juggling this complexity of getting towed or getting cited. It's real.
It's
I have
expensive to be
employees that
poor.
go through that.
Yeah. I think maybe also I think what I hear from both of you are extremes of what our expectations are for the number of houses that get built, right? Like, in your vision, we want to max out the number of residences, and in your vision, we want to strike the balance of
quality of life.
So
I think
I think
Rod's
you
talking.
mischaracterized me, yeah.
Yeah,
No, Rod
he's
doesn't care about quality of life.
He's talking about doing something to incentivize the building of employee housing by employers, so that workers can live nearby.
There's that, and also we've created this beautiful, I shouldn't say we, the people who came before us created this beautiful little town, which couldn't be built with this parking. So I'm trying to incent, things that are more along that line.
But Rod, if it was built with yours, it could have been that there was no parking. 0 parking spaces.
And those who drive cars should just be ashamed.
But to bring this back around, I think, Amy, you're proposing, a realistic middle ground for this, which I would support.
I think a middle ground is a good thing to do, because it'd be interesting to see if it actually, if making it just a notch easier would help incentivize the development of employer-provided employee housing.
I have one more comment. I think it's remarkable that 4 people amidst a population of thousands would have this kind of clout without the public having any say in it. I think that's.
Well, this goes to the council though, right?
The ordinance the ordinance amendments go to the council, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're making a recommendation today.
Right.
What would make it more, you feel it's not sufficiently democratic? Because it's what we're asked to do.
Right.
I think that we are
And the
being
public isn't
tasked
here.
as appointees of representatives to truncate the conversation, because if we did have thousands of people, then that would be a much longer conversation, right? And they can all weigh in on.
I'm sure there's no discussion about the original parking requirements. There's large tables that are put into place that nobody really understands what they are.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, really,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is.
Well, we're here because the public kind of doesn't pay attention to this, so we're trying to advocate.
Except for
And
Miriam.
I'm
Hi, Miriam.
advocating,
Yes.
I am advocating from what I hear at Chamber of Commerce merchant meetings, what I hear from my neighbors in the vicinity, that's what I'm advocating for. I'm not advocating based off of what the state of California has deemed, you know, reasonable or what have you. It's specifically about this location. That's where my point of view is.
I guess I also think, though, that, you know, we want things that aren't necessarily consistent, right?
How do you mean?
Like, we want to live in a cute small town, you know, but we also want to be able to park wherever and whenever we want. And
And you're saying we shouldn't
I'm saying those
facilitate
things
that?
aren't necessarily consistent.
Which we can't quite do. And anyway, we can't park wherever or whenever we want. And there's a larger sort of environmental, if you will, concern that Rod's thinking about a solution to, which is a lack of worker housing. I mean, I'm playing interpreter here.
An environmental, tell me the environmental.
The
part.
environment being that cars ought to be disincentivized and other forms of transportation.
More bike lanes.
More bike lanes, you know, yeah, and providing worker housing closer to where the employment is so that people can walk or bike there rather than drive. Right? Am I interpreting this correctly?
Well, here's the reality. Nevada City, even if you walk and live in Nevada City, it is remote enough that you will still have a car.
Yeah.
So it needs to park somewhere. Even if you walk to work, most people still have a car, and it needs to be somewhere. So it's not about just driving to work. It's about if you live in this town, you are remote enough that you need to go even just to Grass Valley, or you need to go to Auburn, or you need to go to Sacramento.
But I think
you
is
know?
that, but are we saying you need one car per house, or 2 cars per house, or 3 cars per
Well,
house? That's my
say
point.
you're a low-income couple with a kid, and one of you is working paycheck to paycheck, and the other one needs to take care of the kid, and you don't want to be stuck at home with a kid without a car.
Or
in case of emergencies.
You drop your spouse
That's
off
immediately
at-
what I think of. Or
So should we require every, I don't want to spend too much
No,
more
no,
time
no,
on the
it's-
CIA.
we could go-
I think it's
forever.
We could. So I think Amy's made a reasonable proposal. I know, it's not a motion yet, though.
which is what, just demand one space per
6 people.
And that could be for both I
So
mean,
that-
that's for both.
That could be 3 couples and only one of them has a car.
Maybe it's a van. I think maybe in an ideal world, Wendy, like the developer would be able to include more parking spaces. I guess maybe what we're doing is trying to give the flexibility of not taking up too as much space with parking spaces.
Yeah, so I see how we are overparked for like commercial properties, like giant parking lots that are empty. I don't see it residentially. I don't see us overparked residentially. So I'm gonna be a no. I'm not gonna get on board with one. I'm gonna tell you that, you
That's
know?
okay.
So I'm
That's
not,
okay.
I'm not on board with it, so.
So I'm a little lost in terms of where we are.
Well,
There's-
we're just-
There's no motion yet.
Yeah,
we
so
don't
it's
have-
just-
Yeah, so what's? It's an important conversation. The fact you brought it up means that it has merit. If anybody here brings something up, it probably has merit.
Sure, it's been a good discussion, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I would go one space for small employee housing and one space for every 3 beds for large employee housing.
Well,
then
one
that
space for every
takes you
three
to
is
two
as it
for a
currently
small.
exists.
Do you get what you're saying, though? So if you're doing one for every 3 beds on the large, 2 spaces for small is 1 for every 3 beds.
Did you want to change?
No, Amy said 1 space for small.
Right, but mathematically,
Yeah.
a small employee
Has
housing
3.
is 6 beds, up to 6. So requiring
Wait,
on a
okay,
large
hang
to
on,
do
hang on.
1 for every 3 would be the same as 2 within a small, because there's 6, right? So 1 for every 3 would be 2.
Within 6
1
or
plus 1.
fewer, I see what you mean. And what's the square footage of a small employee house?
It's not a square footage, it's
Beds.
number
It's
of
just beds?
beds, yeah.
Could be a mobile home,
Right, because-
manufactured home, RV, travel trailer.
RV with 6 beds?
Those
People
exist.
RV.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Tent.
Mathematically, that's why I said, perhaps you want to change it to 1 space for small employee housing unit and 1 space for every 6 authorized beds. That would be an easy standard for staff to apply in their ministerial review. Of course, the other thing is, this isn't forever.
Yeah,
If you
tell us
find
more,
out in
Russ.
a year that you're
That nobody's added anything.
with the employee housing parking problems, you can either increase or decrease accordingly.
And how would that work, Russ? Like, we would just
Just
notice,
a zoning permit.
okay,
Say that again, Russ?
You got cut off there, Russ.
Zoning ordinance amendment.
Oh, zoning.
Oh, okay, zoning ordinance amendment, got it.
well, we don't have the answers now, right? I mean, it seems like,
Maybe we should wait until the, I know we can't wait, but like, the parking study, when that's complete, I feel like could give some insight into.
So it sounded like that's not going to address parking code, because I did ask.
It's not
you
gonna
that
park,
question.
it won't, I don't think that they're addressing our current parking standards. They're just looking at how we can better utilize the parking we have and maybe consider where parking can be added.
also, I think that if we took this to the entire community, I wouldn't be that surprised if we had a very split. I mean, I don't know, but I just wouldn't be surprised if we had a very split community about parking versus number of beds or housing.
That makes sense, because I'm feeling split between the.
Well, how many
the
cars are
reality
in
and the-
each of
and
your
the
households?
ideal.
How many cars are in each of your
There are
households?
2.
How many cars are in your household?
have 2.
How many people?
One
You have
person.
2 for 1 person. How many
We have
cars?
1 for 2 people.
For 2 people. I have 2 for 2 people. You know, my neighbors each have a car per person or more. I just see it not being successful. Because I do believe that developers will maximize the square footage if they're actually building something. I mean, employee housing can be a tent, which is building nothing.
Yeah.
But in which case, there should be plenty of room for parking, I would think. That 2 is not, a huge inhibitor. But developers don't prioritize things that don't make them money,
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, we do still rely on cars, and maybe someone's car breaks down, you need another one. You know what would be beautiful? The moth fluttering around the back of my brain. What I would love to see, and this is not gonna get us anywhere with this, but a situation where if you give up the car, if there was a housing situation where you could forego a car in a parking space
Shuttle or something like that.
and get free public, assuming that county public transportation
Goes to the farm.
gets to a place, well, part of the issue is that no one uses it. And no one uses it because everyone has cars. It's like with this cat running from its tail. situation instead of
I
eating
think
its
there's
own tail.
also a sense of like agency and independence that's very
Absolutely.
spirited, of people wanting to come and go when they feel like it. I
Right,
also-
right, but that's it's a very rural American thing, and
Yeah.
and that is where we live. But also, like, I think many of us have lived in cities where there's excellent public transportation, and having a car is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Right.
And it would be so great if we could start to move towards more cohesive public, but that's not up to us today.
Correct. Correct.
As the chair, how shall we move forward on this question?
So just to put it out there bluntly, is there any support for what I would support I think was originally Amy's thing, Amy/Russ, the having essentially the parking requirement.
I am inclined towards just accepting as is and seeing what happens in the next year. And thinking harder about it myself. Sorry, Rod.
That's okay. You could make a motion if you'd like to do so.
Okay, I'm gonna motion to approve as is. I'm gonna.
Well, we haven't gone through the whole document yet, right? Or have we?
Oh, I mean, if you guys have other comments on the rest of the document, you can.
No,
I'm done.
Yeah, my concern.
I would recommend that, again, that if you can't agree on specific language, that you send this on to the city council and include, note that the planning commissioners discussed the parking standards set forth in, what is it, G10?
9-1?
G
It's section 10G dot.
030G10, and that the commissioners were split. And that here are the two suggestions for just council discussion. So just let them know what, there was a difference of opinion.
Well, and that it's worth fielding the conversation in more depth to members of the community who care to participate.
Boy, putting that into action, though, that's a
You want to write a report?
thing. No.
A report?
I mean, it's part of the larger question, right?
Yeah.
It's.
The public wouldn't know what they're being asked.
And really, the thing needs to be considered as part of the overall review of parking requirements. But I think noting, well, if this is the only thing, are there other comments that people had on the document before we move on?
No, I don't. The issue I had got answered. What employee housing means and stuff like that got clarified. So,
Do we?
Note for Amy, please.
Yes?
Section 2 of this draft ordinance, under 080 permit requirements, A5, the new language.
Okay.
Please, tree removal shall be reviewed and approved.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then might be another spot where it's the same thing, where it says reviewed, but doesn't include that you approve
Okay.
as well. Reviewed and approved. Thanks.
that's a good one.
And so I'm thinking about how to phrase this with the consideration of the parking's a bigger issue. And along the lines of what Russ is saying, putting in some comments about the discussion that happened. So,
Well, it'd be nice to save the council some work, though, and would they, I mean, they wouldn't be able to have a discussion like this.
yeah, and to me, it's problematic in terms of really.
Opening it up for them?
No, saying that this is one tiny part of a much larger problem.
How helpful is that?
Yeah, exactly. And so, more than made my point today, I think. So saying that I would agree with approving it as it is, with the comment added that, it could be just me if I'm the only one saying that in general, the parking requirements, for the city should be considered at, some point in the future in light of the ongoing parking study as well as the effects of parking on
Development.
development and
I'm in
conditions
favor
that
of that
city.
too.
Yeah,
I think we should constantly be reviewing it and
Yeah.
looking at what is real, And for now, what I have is input from
Right.
the people who live here, But that's where I feel like hopefully the parking study is.
And I've also heard, comments from other people about, the cost of parking in lieu fees being a concern and stuff like that.
Parking what
too.
fees?
Parking
In lieu fees.
in lieu fees.
In lieu fees.
Yeah.
So future consideration might be given to seeing if the
Part of
parking
our-
requirements for employee housing,
Again, this is
a reduction, to incentivize.
I think in general, the odds of us getting the employee housing regardless of parking requirements are pretty small.
I'm
I think
working
that,
on it.
pardon?
I'm working
You're
on
working on it, very good, Amy. And this is one, and even if we address this, it doesn't affect the bigger problem. So,
What do you see as the bigger problem?
I
Out
think
of curiosity,
The
yeah.
bigger problem is just the parking requirements in general, the consideration of how they affect our businesses downtown. You've mentioned the concern you're hearing from other citizens, so I think there's multiple aspects of the parking issue. I mean, the fact that the council's having the study going on,
So you're saying the broader parking issue, I wasn't sure if you meant the broader employment housing issue.
there's that
That
too.
too.
But that wasn't what brought me to this, though.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
To me, it's the effect on, our, quote unquote, design, right? You look at the stuff we built, it's not in line, with the traditional development here. Even in places where we I could
Had
go
more
on.
room and space to do it.
Yeah, right. I mean, we've got co-housing, which has made this place, which doesn't have, parking in the core, but you've got it on the periphery and stuff
Yep.
like that, and it's very isolated from the rest of the town. So,
Yeah.
right, it's a big issue. So I guess, did you capture all of what I said?
I'm
there?
not sure if I captured all of it, but
Okay.
let me give it a shot. So I'd be recommending a motion to recommend that City Council adopt ordinance 2023 next in order as drafted, which makes text amendments to the city municipal code as required pursuant to the adopted 2019 to 2027 housing element. And noting that there was differing concern about the appropriate amount of parking for the employee housing, and parking standards in the municipal code should be reviewed and reconsidered in light of the parking study.
And general effect of parking on business and residences in Nevada City.
I prefer the word reviewed versus reconsidered. To me, that implies a
Yeah.
change.
Reviewed is
Reviewed.
fine. Reviewed is fine.
And I would call it robust discussion.
And also, did the changes that Russ made get captured in that?
That's what I wrote down. I didn't write down anything that rests, I don't think.
Amy, in the staff report,
oh,
you
you
can
mean the-
always elaborate.
Okay, you mean the other things you had me to take a look at, like the tree removal? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, no, yes, I got that.
Yeah, no, I mean, just, the planning commission discussion about this parking thing, you can always elaborate in your city council staff report.
Okay. General effect of parking.
Robust discussion.
Robust discussion.
Is that what you wrote?
I'm just gonna link them to the meeting here.
Don't
Just watch
call
the
it a
video.
disagreement is what he's saying. Don't call it a disagreement.
From this hour to that hour.
I've done that before. I might do that. We'll see. Actually,
So
Lisa might
moved.
do that.
So moved.
Second.
Thirded.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Ermshar.
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden.
Yes.
Chair and I.
Yes.
Whew. Okay, yay. Yeah, I don't have anything else.
On my mind is a suggestion of a future agendized discussion item on clarifying sign language, sign ordinance language, clarifying unifying terms.
Could you elucidate?
Well, for example, prohibited is outline tubing and neon.
Oh, okay.
Very specific as opposed to
Yeah,
just light.
it refers to specific technology, and it seems the intent of that is to prohibit internally lit signs. This is just a big example, but internally lit signs are not prohibited. So maybe a review of that is, indicated so that we can, with more clarity, give direction on applicants, and applicants can be better prepared for what they can expect to be passed by us. I noticed that internal illumination isn't prohibited, and yet our intent clearly is to prohibit internally illuminated signs, and it's hinted at by the use of the term neon, but only specifically as pertains to inside a building. But we've taken it to mean internally lit signs to be prohibited, but they're not explicitly. And some work has been done on a list of inconsistencies where just the language isn't unified in various areas.
I would support that. I've actually taken the time to try to go down and go through the sign ordinance to try to these are the key points that are trying to be made here and make it a list.
That pertain to a given application.
Yeah, so that I can go check, no, kind of thing, yeah.
The other thing I think our applicant today was talking about modeling her sign or feeling like it reflected some of her neighbors. And I know in that kind of corridor, there's a lot of ad hoc, sign making. And that's a bummer, not because I want to limit creativity per se, but because, it's just not good. It's not a good community mindset to be deciding not to participate in where you are, I guess, in that historical ordinance. And so could it be also something part of that review to outline language as far as the enforcement? Because I don't even know if we have a good...
I think that's something that's being considered.
Enforcement?
Yeah, an enforcement scheme.
Well, so there will probably be more, up to now, sign enforcement has been up to me. So I've sent letters to people that get ignored often, or I've gone to the chamber board meetings to ask the tenants to come into compliance. But I think what we're gonna see is that with the vacant storefronts ordinance, it'll have our code compliance officer going out and checking that their vacant storefronts are consistent with what they've submitted, and then she will also, my understanding is, be looking at signage.
And the last thing we want to do is make people feel icky, that we're saying, please participate in this vision that was called out by our first city planner ever as one of the best things this town ever did. Here we are, #1 on that list of top 10 towns. Have you guys seen some of our recent accolades? We get them all the time, right? Of beautiful mountain towns and gold rush stuff, whatever. But, we don't want it to be icky. So,
stating more the why,
yes,
I think is important.
The why behind it. And
it feels necessary to explain to applicants the purpose.
And maybe that's.
You're always really good
Yeah.
at doing that.
Yeah.
Because we're certainly not trying to push back on their creativity, but we do have an eye to the overall composition.
And I will suggest we probably don't want to have too much of a discussion on it,
Today.
because we haven't invited the public.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, once, if it's on an agenda, then
Right.
the public knows it's on. And so-
Right. Just another example is someplace, I think in the design guidelines, it says absolutely no logos. And there's a lot of logo. So, although there's no ordinance language to prohibit it, and that it might be helpful to have some sort of like regulatory package for logos if people do want to do a design, like what percentage of the design versus script, you know, like really lay it out so that we don't appear to be making arbitrary judgments. You know, just in fairness to applicants, so they can come better prepared, and we're not just going, I just don't like that, you know?
Would that type of review leave room also for looking for things that might be ministerially approved? Or, you know, that could also make it more.
Sorry, say that again?
Would that type of review of the historic guidelines that you're talking about tightening up, right? In that review, would we have the opportunity to maybe like tighten up language, make it cleaner, more clear, but also maybe streamline process where, you know.
If it
So what
meant
was
A, B, and
put-
C, it could be approved by staff.
Yeah,
What was
like a little
asked
bit
to
of that.
be reviewed is clarifying sign ordinance language. So that's what's
Yeah,
a
just-
future
just-
agenda item.
Yeah.
You could look at other code requirements too.
I mean, I'm-
Your point is that that's more than just the design guide.
Yes, that's more than just a sign ordinance.
It's the
Yeah.
code,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm thinking you're meaning more than just signs.
I got carried away.
I'd like to take on just a smaller, simpler
Yeah.
to clean up thing that maybe we could work on and then recommend to the council if it seems.
But maybe there's room for that on signs too, even, like that if it's pretty clean, there's like some template signs. I mean, that are basically, hey, if it fits this kind of schematic, it's probably, then somebody can just say yes. I don't know.
You're welcome to think about a
Yeah, we'll
suggestion.
think about it. It's just
like
like-
a practical suggestion.
Yeah,
to
it's
that.
like it's a rhetorical idea.
It's just when preparing for meetings, I look for language in the code that
Mm-hmm.
supports like the sense I get about an application, and I find it's inconsistent. Like where, you know, am I picking the most restrictive section, you know, versus the most permissive section? You kind of can. And the words for things like change a little bit. And if this phrase were used here and the same phrase were used there, then it'd be cleaner. So the city manager may not be in support of this, I don't know, but it seems like it'd be a good discussion item with a little research on our parts beforehand to like suggested changes, if we're interested in doing that.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
in
I'm
support of that.
interested.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a yes.
Yeah.
I don't know that you have to go as far as suggesting changes in the first round, but just compiling a list from what you
That we agree
found.
on?
Okay.
You know, the inconsistencies and the points you'd like clarified, and then that would give staff a starting point to bring back discussion of changes, you know. You don't have to try and take 3 hours one day to get
Like
everything
drafting
done.
it. Got
Right,
it.
right.
Yeah.
Just,
Little big projects, a little bite at a time. So, but you can come out of that with a list of, you know, well, here's 20 sentences that you need to take a look at. That'd be great.
so the staff can fairly easily clean it up and present a draft of changes?
Yeah, that's the idea. You just said fairly easily. There's nothing fairly easily about signing.
That's me trying to sell it, but, you know.
Amy, are
But
you,
yes, that's the process.
you excited to go to Grass Valley now?
Thank you. Thanks, Russ.
Yeah, it's all on her plate.
Shall we adjourn then on that note? Oh, any
Liaison reports.
liaison reports?
I am interested if there's been anything. What was the one that I was like, Rose Market sign?
Has there been any development? No, there hasn't, not that I'm aware of.
I reached out to her a while ago. She seemed like she was about to like do it, and then nothing happened.
She seemed willing. That could be some dissonance between her and the building owner. But anywho, there's no observable change there.
I do not, somehow I brought this up last month and I was there, but this time I'm looking very closely and I am to liaison with Espiritu and I have no update.
Oh, I don't see a spirit.
Yeah.
You don't see it on there now?
I don't see it.
Amy.
Did I drop it off? Espiritu.
And
I don't see it either.
our interim planner is interested and excited about the dark skies ordinance.
I don't know anything about it yet.
Oh, good.
Let's adjourn.
No, we're not going to go there. We are adjourned.
Nice.
Bye,
Thank
Amy.
you all.